Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 667. And joining me is my co-host, Nathan Hawthorne. Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing great today. Thank you.
Are we whispering? Is that what's happening now?
Yeah, like my cats are quietly cuddling right there. So I'm going to have to be quiet for the remainder of the show, if that's cool.
No,
I'm
we
just
can't
kidding.
do
This
that.
is strong. This is Strong Opinion Sports, baby. We are here to be We're here to bring the opinions, and then I'll tell you what. Today they're going to be strong. I'm doing really well. Just had a nice dinner. It's a good day of work. Like let's talk some football.
Yeah, man. More and more, it's an election year, and so the distraction is welcomed, right? The weekend, just diving into football all weekend is like such a blessing. I'm like, yeah. I just look forward to it. I love sitting down and watching football. Yes. USC gave us a good one. There were great games all weekend, Sunday night, Monday night. Actually, let me ask before we get into games, do you like the Monday night doubleheader? Because I actually kind of don't.
I hate it.
But I'm curious if you do.
I hate it.
Okay.
I wanna focus and look at one thing, and I also think that takes away from these teams. You know, Monday Night Football is supposed to be the moment where you have the whole nation looking at you, right? I feel like that really, really takes away from, the teams that maybe don't get to play that often, maybe get a matchup, with somebody like the Chiefs, and typically you don't get a Monday Night Football game. Regardless, ended up being, nice to have two games because you get to watch football. You get to start it sooner and watch it later. But yeah, it's definitely, I don't like it. I'd rather just watch one good game.
It worked out well this week because one of the games was, in fact, the early game ended up sucking, and you were able to just peace out and say, well, I'm going to go watch the good one. Yeah. So I will say, to the credit of Monday night, having two games this week worked out really well. But just generally, I don't really like having my attention divided. Again, I like that, hey, this is the event of the night.
Yes.
And having two just takes away from that.
Like I'm gonna make a dinner. I'm gonna get myself maybe a nice drink, not water tonight. Maybe I'm gonna do like a little lemonade. I've got some dinner. I got the dinner. I got like a Reese's in the freezer. I'm gonna have that sometime around the third quarter. Like I got my night set up. But you put two games. I got to start dinner sooner. Maybe it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, it's a lot. Let's talk about the first one. On Monday Night Football, the Bills beat the Jaguars 47-10. 47-10. And, man, look, the Jaguars are 0-3. I've got a lot to say about the Bills in favor of them, but let's start with the Jaguars. What do you make of them starting 0-3? And some really bad, awful losses.
Yeah.
This is terrifying. I mean, 47-10 was not acceptable to me, given that you're paying Trevor Lawrence $275 million, given that expectations are supposed to go up this year. It's awful, right?
It's horrible. And, you've lost, dating back to last season. What is that, like the last 8 games? Something like that? Like, it's horrible. And the problem is, to me, is you're in your third year with Doug Peterson now. And things haven't really gotten that much better. The team doesn't look more disciplined. Nobody looks like they're playing, as more of a cohesive unit. Things just look like they would maybe mid-year of the first season, with Doug Peterson. And to me, that's a problem. They have no offensive identity. They've got no defensive identity. In fact, on defense, your highest paid defensive players are performing pretty mid. It seems like Josh Hines-Allen hasn't really progressed as much. Who's the gentleman that they drafted, I believe, last year? Trevon Walker. As a first overall pick, I would have liked to have seen a little more from him at this point. I think he has 2 sacks on the year, but the way the defense is performing in the aggregate, I don't think you can say he's playing stellar. But goodness gracious, I have some thoughts on what might fix it, but I'm curious how you're seeing it as well.
I mean, if I remember correctly, I can look it up, but just tell me if I'm wrong. They picked Trevon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson.
They did.
Like, what? Well, how is that possible? I mean, you're waiting for the production. The Bills were, first of all, the Bills look great. And Joe Brady is incredible. He looks like an awesome offensive coordinator. The Bills scored on the first 5 drives of the night. And that first half couldn't have gone better for the Buffalo Bills. And what really stands out is their coordinator. I want to praise Josh Allen. I don't mean to not praise him, but coaching really matters in the NFL. I feel like that's a huge theme of today's episode, especially.
Yes.
They were dialing up incredible play calls all night, every single time.
They had the Jags in a blender.
Every play.
They had them in a blender.
Dude, I mean, players in the right opportunity, in the right spot, just dialing up great play calls or great play call. And one thing that really stands out, they talked about even on the broadcast, they're using motions pre-snap to identify coverages, to give you a look, is it man, is it zone, what's happening? And for on one hand, Buffalo did that all night long. The Jaguars barely did that. And it was so vanilla. They weren't helping their quarterback identify anything pre-snap. It was so weird. It's like, are we watching an NFL offense? I don't understand how this is possible. And the contrast was so stark with the play calling, the play design,
Yes.
the little subtleties of what they were doing. And it's a huge problem, man. So, look, the Bills look incredible. They're better than I thought by a lot. They've now dominated the Dolphins. They dominated Jacksonville. They're in a really good spot as an organization. The Jaguars are like on the exact flip side, a disaster and a problem. And you don't have an out with Trevor Lawrence's contract until 2029. And I know it's a bit early to be talking about that. He's not going anywhere, though, is what I'm trying to say. So if they're going to make a change, it's got to be with the coach. And I mean, look, Doug Peterson is way better than Urban Meyer was, but that's not saying much. And I don't want to be impatient. I try to be patient. We said after they started 0-2, hey, we're getting to a point where soon we're going to have this conversation. And I wanted to wait a couple weeks till we started saying, hey, let's fire Doug Peterson. But now you're 3 weeks in and you got obliterated by 37 points. And it wasn't even the same conversation. It's a problem, and I feel bad for Jaguars fans. I don't know what you do at this point other than fire Doug Peterson. That sucks. That feels impatient. I don't like that answer, but you're doing the same thing year in and year out, waiting, and nothing's changing, nothing's developing.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I have significant questions about Trevor Lawrence as a leader at this point. What do you make of that? Is that out of pocket to ask that question?
I don't think it's out of pocket, but I think it might be the wrong way to look at it. I still see Trevor in there taking command of the huddle. I think sometimes maybe his facial expressions and the fact that he tends to be more of a, like as things go, like just, like kind of goes off the back of your shoulder, seems to be unaffected by things. I feel like that being his natural disposition can lead people to believe that he's maybe not a great leader or he's giving bad body language, etc. Go ahead.
Well, if I may, the stark was contrast when you switch games from Buffalo, Jacksonville to Washington, Cincinnati, and you see Jaden Daniels on the sideline dapping people up, encouraging his teammates. So like that's a rookie leading his team, encouraging everyone, lifting up people around him. Kind of like Gardner Minshew does from time to time, just galvanizing the people around you and encouraging them. And like I watched Jaden Daniels, that's a guy I want to follow. I watch Trevor Lawrence and I go, okay, long-haired dude. Okay, Lord Farquaad. Like, what are we doing here? When is this ever going to be motivating? When are you ever going to be the catalyst to get your team going? And it's just not happening.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of a cheap shot. I don't mean to do that. I know that's kind of a, to talk about leadership is out of bounds. But it's like we've been waiting for a long, long time for this kid to deliver.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest.
And let me say, the interception was awful, by the way. That interception to DeMar Hamlin.
That was bad.
Like, he had Brian Thomas Jr. wide open over the middle. That's a throw I watched in high school football all day long.
To me, that's just telling of the condition that the Jaguars are currently in, right? It's no longer, one unit's not performing. Like the linebackers are having a tough time, so the run game's poor, or your wide receivers aren't getting open, so the passing game is tough. It is now a systematic problem to the point where your quarterback can't deliver, a football that he would in practice or in his sleep. He's done that. He's made that throw billions of times in his life. And if he's missing that and his feet look frazzled on that throw, arguably his cleanest pocket of the night, that's a serious problem. My opinion, it might be a hot take opinion, I think the offense needs to change, and I think there needs to be a different play caller. How many times have you seen Trevor Lawrence throw a slant this year or an easy stick route? It seems like every single play is a sprint out or a half rollout or a play action when the run game isn't even working, or these long developing crossers or a deep post and flood. And to me, what kills those sort of routes is penetration, right? Because it takes time for those things to develop. And if you're constantly asking Trevor to do these half sprint outs and try and wait for somebody to cross the field, that gets exhausting. And then when you get to, second and third and long, and again, you're trying to dial up these bigger deep shots, like that's not conducive to playing good football. It just seems like every throw that Trevor is asked to make right now is really hard. Right. And then you throw on top of it, I can't remember. He did throw an actual, it was a rail. The receiver decided to sit and the guy just dropped it short of the sticks. He was wide open, probably could have gotten an extra 7-8 yards at some time, I think, in the second quarter. But yeah, I think you can see it from the whole team. I mean, you have Eric Armstead on that defense and the D-line just looks horrible. Eric Armstead and Josh Hines-Allen. And the rookie from a couple years ago. Like, if you're looking at these guys up front, like on paper, this team should be very good. Their owner said it to start the year. This is the best team that we have assembled. And if you can't get these guys moving in the same direction, we've got a serious problem because they truly do have weapons on both sides of the football. Let's not act like they don't have a good roster. They have definitely a top half of the league roster, and for it to show up this way, to me, is very poor. I still have belief in Trevor Lawrence. I think that he's got a lot of talent. I know that interception was bad. I know that he's had a history of turnovers. But like we talked about, coaching matters, right? And he's had Urban Meyer and now Doug Peterson, who ran out of Philly after that same offense stopped working in Philly after the Super Bowl. Like, we've got a serious problem. And again, I'm not trying to say that everything needs to be blown up. But I think the first thing that has to change is the offense to play complementary football and keep the defense off the field.
Yeah. Look, things are better in the second half, but the game
was already so far gone at that point.
I can't remember what coach was talking about this. I saw this. Dan Casey shared it, actually. It was I believe the offensive coordinator of the Miami Hurricanes, but correct me if I'm wrong, talking about how your job as a coordinator is to make adjustments in a game. Everyone can game plan. Everyone can come into the game with a good plan. But what you have to do is make adjustments on the fly. Mm-hmm. Jacksonville's done a horrible job of doing that this year. It could not be more clear. And I don't think it's out of, I think it's really obvious, actually. Like, clearly something has to change in Jacksonville. The question is when, and the question is what. Trevor Lawrence isn't going anywhere. Like it or not, they're paying him too much money to get rid of him. So they got to get him a coach and figure it out sooner than later. It's unfortunate because I thought after the first year it was going to go really well and head in a really positive direction. But now we're sitting in year 3 with them at 0-3 and losing in some like really shameful and horrible ways. And it's all bad in Jacksonville. I feel bad for Jaguars fans, honestly.
And that's the thing that we talk about with these head coaches and these teams. You want to see them get better by the time the end of the year is coming around. You want to see an improvement as these games keep passing and keep passing. And I feel like we've seen the same Jaguars football team for 2.5 years now. And that's not going to win football games.
Why? I just think, man, I'm a big believer in motion and giving your quarterback every opportunity pre-snap to get an idea what look the defense is running.
Absolutely.
And the lack of motion, the lack of stuff that could help Trevor Lawrence is what's really irritating to me. They're just not doing him any favors. And you look around the NFL, and so many coaches are doing their young quarterbacks a favor.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know why. I don't know what's happening there, but it's a problem. Can we talk about Buffalo? Unless you have more to add about Jacksonville.
No, yeah, we can talk about Buffalo. I don't have a ton to say about them because I got to stick to my truth that I don't think that they are a great team. For some reason, they've got the 3rd best Super Bowl odds. But to me...
My guy.
No, listen.
They dismantled Miami.
Here's the deal. Miami, obviously Tua didn't get hurt until later in the game, but they jumped on Miami early. They were out of sorts. Miami wasn't ready. And also the Bills have just historically had the Dolphins number, right? That game doesn't count to me. You barely kind of beat the Cardinals. You let them drop, 30-some-odd points on you? And if the Cardinals didn't have a collapse and let you back into the game, you probably lost that. And then you beat an obviously very, very beat-down Jaguars team. Here's my hot take. The Bills are the Cowboys of 2 years ago. Beat up some really average teams, average to bad teams, and then when they play a good team, they're not going to look that great. Here's the deal. I will give credit. Milano's hurt. They moved on from Poyer. They moved on from Hyde. They moved on from Tre'Davious White, and that defense is still playing very good football. Greg Rousseau is on that front end. Von Miller is your best pass rusher, but the dude's 90 years old. Again, I think that they have jumped on some teams early. Joe Brady is dialing stuff up right now, and it looks great. But I think this test against the Ravens will let us know how good they actually are. I still think they're a pretty middling team. Josh Allen's an MVP candidate, but I think they're a middling team.
I could not disagree with you more, actually. Football season is here, and that means it's time to go to football games. And the Game Time app makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the start of any sporting event. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Here's what the Game Time app does for you. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets. They have flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. There are zone deals where you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. They have all-in pricing where toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. There are seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your ticket. And Game Time has a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And on top of all of that, Game Time has ticket coverage where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem with the code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I tried to look. I believe I was with you going into week one, right? We were aligned there.
Yes.
But the first 3 weeks have changed my mind, and it'll be fun to see who's right. I'm buying into Buffalo. They took apart Miami. They destroyed Jacksonville. What I'm saying is, what more do you want? They've gotten better week to week. Josh Allen looks incredible. They don't seem to miss stuff on Diggs at all. In fact, the offense looks better without him. The defense is way better than I expected. There was no pass rush on Josh Allen at all. And some of that's Jacksonville's dysfunction.
Yeah.
But Josh Allen was like untouched this game on Monday Night Football.
He's done a great job taking care of the football this year. 0 picks.
Not taking hits, being really smart. Look, they play
very
at Baltimore.
Runs.
The next 3 games, at Baltimore, at Houston, at the Jets. We're going to find out.
Yep.
But you clearly, you think they're middling.
Yep. I'm
on the opposite end. I think they walk away, 5-1, 6-0 after the next 3 weeks. I'm a believer. I'm like, hey, this is a Super Bowl contender we're not talking about. We're going to find out when they play Houston. But remember, Houston got dismantled by Minnesota, and the Ravens struggled to beat Dallas on Sunday. So
they didn't struggle to beat Dallas. They whooped Dallas's ass, and then they just laid down for a nap in the second half. They were averaging.
What about the Raiders game? How good is Baltimore? What happened in the Raiders game?
Everybody gets caught every once in a while. The Niners got caught. It's any given Sunday in the NFL. The Bills are going to lose 2 of their next 3 games, guaranteed.
Dude, I don't know. I disagree with you. We'll see who's right, but I don't know what more the Bills can do to prove they're 3-0. They're destroying people. What else do you want from them?
I want to see them beat a quality football team. And they haven't beat one yet.
Big words.
Quality is the big word now? Is that new?
Can we talk about Damar Hamlin, dude? So we talked about the Trevor Lawrence interception. It's a ball, Brian Thomas Jr. is wide open on a deep dig. Trevor airmails it. But the guy on the other end of that was Damar Hamlin, the guy who we watched die on the football field a couple of years ago. I didn't realize that's his first NFL interception. And what I want to say about this is that it's so cool to see a guy who got made fun of for an entire year. He got one comeback player of the year, didn't really play. You saw so many memes for so long about when are they going to cut him? How valuable is he? Why are they keeping him around? He's a mascot basically. Well, Damar Hamlin's not a mascot anymore. He's playing meaningful football. He's making a difference in games, and that's really cool to see, given he has done nothing but be really positive in the wake of what happened to him. Literally, again, I've never seen someone die on the football field until I saw that happen with him. Getting back, being really positive, using his platform for good. But then on top of all of that, now he's a contributor. And all the memes that made fun of him for 2 years, don't even matter anymore. And so it's just cool to see the guy. Look, is he the best safety in football? No. Is he a meaningful starter in Buffalo? Yes. And that's like really, really cool to see and deserves credit and deserves acknowledgement.
Very much so. I don't have much more to add other than just to double down on his perseverance and his strength to make it through that situation and then, have a big play. Monday Night Football, you intercept Trevor Lawrence. That's storybook stuff.
Is Joe Brady a head coaching candidate?
That's a great question. He might be. But to me, God, I don't know. That's a great question. I think he could be, maybe. I feel like he came so out of nowhere last year, and obviously the Bills finished strong, and this year they've started strong. You'd like to think so, but
here's
maybe
the
he's
history.
just an offensive nerd, and he's just up there with the game plan, and all of a sudden, if you add too much to his plate, he won't be able to coach. I don't know.
Joe Brady was the passing game coordinator of the 2019 LSU team that won the national title with Joe Burrow. Then he got hired as offensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers in 2020 and was a borderline disaster.
Everything
he got
was a
fired.
disaster.
2020 was rough, and then on top of that, it was a mess. It was weird. It was not good. But he got outed as the offensive coordinator of Carolina under Matt Rule. In Buffalo was a quarterback's coach. Then, when Ken Dorsey got fired, he moved into their role. Now he's doing great. I mean, he really looks like one of the best offensive coordinators in football right now, 3 weeks into the 2024 season.
Yeah.
I am curious how that works out. But I also look around at Buffalo and Washington with Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator. You've got these defensive-minded head coaches with offensive coordinators doing a great job. And you kind of just hope they can keep him. I really think if you can keep Joe Brady in Buffalo, that's a great pairing. If you can keep Cliff Kingsbury in Washington working with Jaden Daniels, that's a huge win and victory you want. So I wonder how long these guys are going to stay, but they're clearly doing a great job in the roles they're currently in. And I wonder if guys like Joe Brady or Cliff Kingsbury are going to become head coaches down the road.
Yeah, I think about Joe Brady in particular. Cliff Kingsbury kind of has had his opportunity to be a head coach. But for Joe Brady, I'd stay with Josh Allen a little bit longer. But then if I'm a team looking to hire a new head coach, I'd be careful. Because you get blessed with a guy like Josh Allen who got developed by other coaches before you had the opportunity to come in. And yes, Josh Allen, I think, has looked better with Joe Brady because of the support of the run game. But Matt Nagy looked really, really good when he had Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. Joe Brady has looked really, really good with Josh Allen back there. I would be cautious of hiring him, understanding what situation you may be bringing him into. That's all I'm saying. Not to say that he can't be, but that's just something I would be conscious of.
There's an art form to working with a rookie quarterback. Bobby Slowick is the best example of of an offensive coordinator working with a rookie quarterback and getting the most out of it. What he did with C.J. Stroud last year was incredible. That's the guy. That's the blueprint. We saw in Carolina this past weekend, Dave Canales wasn't working with a second-year quarterback, Bryce Young. The minute he got a veteran quarterback in there, Andy Dalton, massive change, massive difference in what the offense looked like. My point is this, and you're onto something here, finding a coach that can work well with a rookie quarterback is very different than finding a coach that can work well with a veteran quarterback who knows the game, doesn't struggle with terminology, isn't learning anything. Because teaching a young guy is very different than winning with a veteran who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's just it couldn't be more clear to me, actually, after this weekend of week 3 of the NFL 2024 season.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one coach who's doing an incredible job working with a rookie quarterback is the man himself, Cliff Kingsbury, working in Washington. Washington beat Cincinnati 38-33 on Monday Night Football. To me, can I talk about the play of the game first?
Yeah, absolutely.
There was one play
I think it's probably the same play, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm sure we're on the same page here. Washington's up 31-26, 3rd and 7, 2 minutes and 15 seconds left, and he throws a dagger to end the game. Jaden Daniels said game. He throws a touchdown pass down the right sideline to Terry McLaurin. It was beautiful. It was cool. He recognized the coverage. It was like, oh, that's it right there. I think that's when you texted me last night, Jaden ... Daniels. That's probably why,
yes,
right?
Was that exactly
why you did that? On top of that, though, like, for real, I think Jaden Daniels, it's weird. He was 21 for 23 passing, 254 yards, 2 touchdown passes, plus 12 carries, 39 yards, and a touchdown run. He had more touchdowns than he had incomplete passes, and I would actually argue he had 3 big misses on the day. He missed Terry McLaurin open for a touchdown. He had another miss that's in my mind, and then he had a play where he ran for 2 yards where he had a crosser wide open over the middle. My point is this. He can actually still somehow get better, and he looks incredible already. The future is really, really bright for Jaden Daniels. There's 2 quarterbacks right now that are young. Will Levis, I'm obviously concerned about. Anthony Richardson, I'm not sold on. Jordan Love, I'm not sold on. The jury's out on Caleb Williams, but right now, Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix have convinced me already, like, these guys got it. They're going to be fine. They look really, really good. It was reassuring to watch Jaden Daniels, but then on top of how he played and made great throws and ran around, did a lot of stuff, his leadership on the sideline was incredible.
Yeah.
And the camaraderie of the entire Washington Commanders team under Dan Quinn, they look like they're having fun. And he's leading people and encouraging people, and just the culture they're building in Washington looks like it's a really good place to be, which is not the case the last couple of years leading up to this.
Yeah. I think real quickly to jump in, you were talking about Dan Quinn. How'd that Dallas defense look last year, the last couple of years? It was that same excited energy running off the field, attacking. And I think that's the culture that Dan Quinn brings. And you've got a guy like Jaden Daniels who's on the same page as the head coach, offensive or defensive head coach or not. Your quarterback has to bring whatever the culture is that the head coach is bringing down. And to see Jaden Daniels do that, I think is awesome. It feels more like a college locker room than it does an NFL locker room. You get guys pulling for each other, supporting each other, not making, the business decisions and thinking about their contract and money. They're like, hey, people don't think we're worth a shit. Let's go out there and ball. And I love that.
Say what you want about Cliff Kingsbury. He got fired by the Cardinals. This is his second time working with a rookie quarterback who looks really good. Kyler Murray won Rookie of the Year that year in 2019. Don't forget that. So now we've seen, hey, not everyone can work well with a rookie quarterback. This guy's got that trait. I don't know if he's a head coach again. I don't know if he's a guy you want coaching Jaden Daniels for the next 20 years. But I'll tell you what, next time you draft a young quarterback and he's available, go find him. Because he clearly has shown now twice in a row with Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels, he works really well with rookie quarterbacks. I think that what we're learning about young quarterbacks is if you can get a coach that helps you early on develop and learn the game and give a couple years with a Brian Dable like Josh Allen had, or a Cliff Kingsbury like Kyler Murray had, or maybe, again, Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. You get that coach for 3 years, you get to know the NFL well enough, then you're put in a position where that coordinator you work really well with can leave, and you can continue on playing good football because you now know the game well enough. But you need the right guy to lead you into the league.
Yeah.
That's what they've got in Washington with Cliff Kingsbury.
It's so critical that confidence gets built early. As soon as you start, to quote Sam Darnold, seeing ghosts, or like Bryce Young, completely lacking confidence, as soon as you don't have it, you can't play quarterback in the NFL. If you're second guessing anything that you see, you are not going to be on time. You're not on schedule. You're going to miss throws by half an inch, which turns out to be a pick six. That confidence in that first year and a half is so critical.
Terry McLaurin is the person I want to talk about next. He is quietly like probably the most underrated receiver in football. 4 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. But what I want to point out about him, he's dealt with so much, frankly, bullshit throughout his career. Quarterback changes and inconsistencies, and he just kept his head down, been a team player, been great the entire time. And he's like the dream for any quarterback to work with. Like, he's not a drama queen. He's a team first guy, doesn't make a big stink about stuff. He deserves every penny. He actually, he's nowhere near a Larry Fitzgerald in ability. They're just different players completely. Yeah. But as far as his leadership, his mindset, his team first attitude, he really reminds me of Larry Fitzgerald in that there's no drama, there's no problems. He's willing to put up with nonsense, be in a dysfunctional mess for a while, and just keep your head down and be a good team player. What do you make of Terry? You're a former receiver. I love Terry McLaurin. What do you make of him?
I love him, and I love his ability to attack the football. Between him and Tyler Lockett, I've never seen two guys make more awkward, weird, hard to track catches. And they're just so special with that. But you're right. He's endured a lot, as have a lot of players, on that Commanders football team over the past couple of years with the shoddy ownership, bad facilities, this, that, and the other, inconsistent coaches coming in and out. So to see him, finally have a moment in the sun and to finally have a quarterback that can get him the football has to be so exciting. That's the worst thing as a receiver is when you're talented, like Deontay Johnson, and we'll talk about that later. But when you don't have a quarterback that can get you the football, it doesn't matter what you do. But yeah, so super exciting for Terry McLaurin.
Week 1, he had 2 catches for 17 yards. Week 2, he had 6 catches for 22 yards. And finally, week 3, 4 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. They talked about him being patient. It's like,
it's gonna keep
I think literally Troy Aikman said this during the broadcast. Like, he's been patient his entire career. He's fine. Like, he's really not. I just would love to work with a guy like that who's got a good attitude and going to show up every day and give his best and not cause a problem. It's a dream for a guy like Jaden Daniels to have him at receiver.
Yes, very much so.
How about the Bengals? They're 0-3. And I thought Joe Burrow was fine. It's weird to watch him get a bit outshined by Jaden Daniels. And what's more confusing, actually, it's a defense I really respect with Lou Anarumo. And it was a weird loss, losing to Washington, losing to rookie quarterback, having Joe Burrow look like the second best quarterback on the field, which is, I don't say that lightly, but that's kind of what we saw. It felt like. I'm not trying to hate on anyone. I don't want to count out Cincinnati, but they're 0-3. It's getting close to time to get going.
Yeah.
What do you make of Cincinnati right now?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that Jaden Daniels, outshined Joe Burrow, if we're being honest. I get that. But
Why not?
Because I think that the expectations are different. The expectations for Jaden Daniels are very different than the expectations for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. We've seen it before. We expect that sort of performance from him against the defense that the Commanders have, which is not great, right? Jaden Daniels, 21-23, that's incredible, right? Can't take anything away from that. He obviously played a great game, but I don't think it was this dichotomy of one quarterback outshining the other. I think it was just the expectations for Burrow are up here. Jaden Daniels' expectations are high for a rookie quarterback, but they're not anywhere near what we expect from Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So I think that's the first thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying is that it's just we're used to seeing Joe Burrow do that all the time. I'm just repeating what you said, but what you're saying is, hey, we're just used to that. It's not a surprise. It's not catching anybody off guard. That's why, to me, it felt so noteworthy. Jaden Daniels looked incredible, and that's why it's been stuck in my head for the last 24 hours, but that's because we're so used to Joe Burrow doing that, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And then, like you're saying, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button yet. I don't believe the Bengals have played a division opponent yet. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think they've played an in-division opponent, so there's still a lot of opportunity for them to win the AFC North. But the defense is a bit of a concern. I felt like Jaden Daniels had a lot of time to throw. Between Hendrickson and Hubbard, it didn't seem like there was a great pass rush. That's a problem, especially if you're giving a rookie quarterback time to let go of the ball and build that confidence. Offense was fine. Obviously, having Higgins back, I think, freed things up for Jamar Chase, especially over the top. Having 2 legitimate number 1 wide receivers is great to see. The offense is going to be just fine. Don't press the panic button yet, but the defense needs to find a groove, and they need to find some help on the back end. I feel like they have a rotating gang of safeties and corners over the past couple of years. I can't put anybody to memory who's been there for, an extended period of time. So I'd like to see them maybe stick to somebody. I don't know if that makes sense, but the defense has to come together.
Yeah, I think you're also working with an organization that's just insanely cheap, right? You're looking at, they won't pay Jamar Chase, they won't pay T. Higgins, they paid Joe Burrow. I think that's that's a factor here, is the unwillingness to spend money on players in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say, if I may, they lose week 1 to the Patriots by a touchdown. They lose by literally a point to Kansas City in week 2. Then they lose by 1 score here on Monday night, week 3. Like, they're in games. They're 0-3, but like a play or two different, they're 3-0 instead. And I don't want to. I think you're right to not hit the panic button. Where I would be concerned is, hey, it's not just that they don't look terrible. Like, the Bengals have been competitive in every game. That's not my concern. My concern is you're 3 games into the year and you're just, I know it's weird to say, but you're going to run out of time eventually. At some point, you got to turn the ship around.
Yeah.
Next week, you're playing at Carolina, a really great opportunity to win. What I don't like about it, you're playing the Red Rifle. You're playing Andy Dalton. Is anyone going to be more fired up to play the Bengals than Andy frickin' Dalton? Like, I don't know. I don't think they lose to Carolina next week, but if you end up 0-4, another close loss, you're just running out of time because then you play Baltimore the week after that. I'm not saying the Bengals look horrible. What I'm saying is 0-3 is you're in the hole by a lot, and you got a big mountain to climb up and a hole to get out of.
Yeah, the hole certainly gets steeper the more games you lose. Carolina is a great opportunity to win, but the tough part, and the Raiders suffered from this, actually we'll get to that later, but good opportunity to win for the Bengals this week. Don't press panic, but if this game's close, I would press panic.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app, and you can use Prize Picks while you watch NFL games this fall because making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. I can't wait to we'll talk about the Panthers game in a little bit. I want to we'll talk about Sunday Night Football in a moment. I want to tell you, and it's off screen, I promise, though it is there. I have put myself on the Strong Opinion Sports Ring of Honor. It's now up on the wall. Zach Schaumler, my name. I chose that. I voted myself in.
Okay.
I'm on the Strong Opinion Sports Ring of Honor. I got really inspired by the Atlanta Falcons owner, Arthur Blank, being inducted into the Falcons Ring of Honor. I just was like, hey, if he can do it, I'm going to do it. So I promise you, off to my right, my name is on the wall, and I'm now on the Strong Opinion Sports Ring of Honor. I voted myself in, and I made that decision, and everyone agreed with me. So,
and I'd like to also vote myself in while we're just doing it. So just go ahead and write me up there, toss me up there, whatever. Crayon, marker, doesn't matter.
Strong Opinion Sports, your favorite comedy podcast. No, in fairness, I think like it's hard to get a read. It felt really weird and self-congratulatory. I think the Levy Group, who does like their distribution for the stadium, technically made this, did this thing, but it felt really weird to watch an owner get put into the franchise's Ring of Honor. It's like, this is just weird, and I don't like the vibe of it. I don't know if it's really as grimy as it actually felt. But it was weird, right? That moment watching an owner get put into his own franchise's Ring of Honor.
How many Super Bowls have the Falcons won with Arthur Blank as the owner?
It's like,
Exactly. So how can you be in a Ring of Honor as an? I feel like that's the only way to get in as an owner. Like, because you have a historic team that wins, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this guy helped turn the organization. Whatever. I'm not going to waste my time talking about Arthur Blank.
I will say, I don't think they hate him in Atlanta. Like, he's one of the more liked owners, I think. I mean, he also gave away like a free soda and a hot dog and chips, I guess. So it's like, it's not like the worst thing in the world that your owner is going to give away free drinks and make it an event. I don't mind that. It just felt really weird. I was like, I got to say something. I'm like, this is just an awkward moment to happen at an NFL game. Like, that's bizarre to me.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Now, on his big momentous occasion, his team lost. Kansas City beat Atlanta in Atlanta, 22-17 on Sunday Night Football. Where do you want to start with this game?
Let's start with the Cincinnati. Oh my goodness! Wow,
Kansas City.
Let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think we figured out their new formula to win. It feels, and I hate to make this comparison because I feel like I've heard a few other people make this as well. It feels very Brady Belichickian type win. Limit your mistakes. Let your defense do work. Be special when you have to. I think people are looking at this Kansas City offense without Hollywood Brown. And of course, yes, you have the addition of Xavier Worthy, but this offense is relatively the same that it was in 2022 and 2023. Rashee Rice has grown. Yes. Travis Kelce has, obviously gotten a little bit older, but this offense isn't anything special yet. They're still dealing with largely the same weapons that, made them limited over the past couple of years. Now, obviously, I don't think Pat is playing as well as he could, and he's admitted that. It's going to take a little bit for this offense to get going, but goodness gracious, is that defense for real. They bottled up Bijan on the ground. They made it very hard for Kirk to push the ball downfield like he wanted to do. You could see him wanting to let go of it, and he just couldn't, so he'd check it down just like he's known for. Man, Kansas City is a legitimate team. Hopefully that offense can get better once Hollywood Brown comes back from the IR. But, yeah, in a word salad there, Kansas City, still very good team. Falcons, also good team, but not as good.
Falcons running back Bijan Robinson, 16 carries for 31 yards, less than 2 yards a carry. Now, I want to give a caveat. I'm about to talk about this Kansas City defense and praise them a bunch. The caveat here is after halftime, they were down 2 of their starters on the offensive line. They lost Drew Dahlman and Caleb McGarry. That matters. That not nothing. It's really hard to run an offense when you're just shorthanded on the offensive line. And it affected their offense in the second half, undoubtedly. The Falcons had 3 points in the entire second half. That played a role in it, but it wasn't everything. In fact, they got into the red zone twice in the fourth quarter, the final 2 drives of the game. And what you walk away with is Kansas City getting a stop on 4th down in the red zone, not once, but twice, 2 drives in a row at the end of the fourth quarter. And I think you can criticize Atlanta if you want, but I just choose to look at it, right or wrong, is, hey, that's a great job by the Chiefs defense. It's just another year, another great Chiefs defense. I thought there was a bad no call, a 3rd and 5, looked like pass interference. In fact, there was another one missed on the Washington Bengals game. It just didn't end up mattering, so I didn't talk about it. Yeah. But 3rd and 5, throw to Kyle Pitts in the end zone, looked like a missed call. But in the same breath, like, I just, in fact, I lost to you in high school, Nathan. I talk about the story all the time. I literally, my first ever varsity start was against your high school. We block your guys' field goal. We think we win. You guys pick it up and run for a touchdown. And what I've always said about that game over the years is, was it a weird call? Did it happen weird? Yeah, but the truth is we could have made more plays throughout the game to win that game. Right. If a game comes down to one play, you let it be in that position. You could have made a lot of plays along the way. Correct. So I'm just never going to come down, hey, that 3rd and 5 missed pass interference call is the difference in the game. Yeah, like technically, but think of all the moments throughout the game you could have made better plays. It's just hard for me to really fixate on one thing like that when there's so many other things you can point to. I don't know, man. I have a hard time coming down hard on Atlanta from this loss, just given the offensive line, given how good Kansas City is. I mean, the truth is you lose by 5 to a 3-0 Chiefs team that's maybe the best team in football. Can you swallow that? Yeah, I can live with that. Is that crazy of me to say?
No, I don't think so at all. Like you said, you're in the red zone twice. You had the opportunity to win the game. Kansas City just happened to make a couple more plays on defense, penalty or not. That's we can't go back. But I think you feel pretty good if you're the Falcons. But 1-2 doesn't feel good, knowing the 2 games that you lost. You open up and you don't show up or show out. Okay, some week 1 jitters. Week 2, you have this really exhilarating win. And then week 3, you were kind of looking for that same result, but just, couldn't quite get it done. So you feel positive, but that 1-2 doesn't feel very good,
Yeah. So I've got a lot more games I want to talk about today, but I'd like to actually talk to some people on Patreon first because... Ooh.
All right.
We get a lot of write-ins on Patreon, and normally I save the Patreon questions for the Thursday night episode, the game after the Thursday night game I record to sit down by myself, answer a bunch of Patreon questions. I've been collecting a couple, and I put out a special post on Patreon just for you. But before we get into the surprise I've got, which we'll get there, it'll be fun. And I don't know if I'm overselling it. It might not be that fun, but it's certainly interesting. I want to first read a question. I got 2, one from Gabe, one from Jeffrey, but... I read the one from Gabe on the show last week, but the truth is I didn't have a great answer. Yeah. And I really thought, given your life and where you're at, you could really well answer this. So can I read a question from Gabe?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Gabe says, hello, throw it back, Zach. I need some advice. I just had to move away from the only state I've lived in, away from all my friends for a job promotion. It's been quite the change, and I've been missing my friends quite a lot, and I already want to move back. It hasn't even been a month. However, I knew if I didn't take this opportunity, my future self would probably suffer. My question for you is this. How did you leave Oregon for Hawaii the times that you did? He continues saying, "You knew the location you were going to was better, yet you had to leave your friends and family behind. Seeing your journey gives me hope, as I can always move back just as you have. Always appreciate the hard work you do for your community, pumping out these podcasts, Gabe." So I answered this. I felt like I didn't do a great job, but you left Portland. We grew up in Vancouver, Washington, and then you lived in Portland. I actually live in your old building, hilariously. And you left. You went to San Francisco for a job and a big promotion. So I think you can really relate to this question. What would you say to Gabe?
Man, Gabe, I empathize with you big time. That was the exact same situation I was in. Calling mom, calling dad. Being with my fiance certainly helped. I don't know what your relationship situation is, but that brought us closer together. But it is hard. You do want to move home because while the location that is that you've moved to is great, it's not what you know, and you don't have your routines, and you feel like you don't have control, and things as far as or as small as like getting your license plate changed or getting your mail forwarded, and all these little things start to stack up and make it really, really tough to settle in, right? And what you have to do, and this is what really helped Liz and I, we got some advice from a friend, is you just have to get rid of your expectations. We came to San Francisco under the guise that, it's a bigger Portland. It's just like Portland, but it's bigger. And that's what we came in with, and that's not what we saw or what we experienced when we first got there. So it kind of damaged the way we were feeling. So again, I'll get back to it. Just lower your expectations or have no expectations. Take things in stride and do your best to get out of the house. If you sit in the house, it's going to do you more damage than anything. Go explore different neighborhoods. If it's financially possible, go try and see some different restaurants, do some events, things like that to get you out of the home and familiar with the area that you're in, and start some sort of routine. Even if it's just, hey, I'm going to go up and go for a 20-minute walk. Just owning that first part of your morning is going to give you so much more control over the rest of your day and set you up for success. So remove any expectations you have about, wherever this place is that you've moved to. Start taking control of your mornings to feel like you have some sort of established routine, and then just try to enjoy it. Get out, see some new people. It is hard to make friends. Get out there, go to events. Don't be afraid to go to a sports bar by yourself to watch a game. And who knows, maybe you bump into somebody like Zach or myself, and you start chopping it up. And then now you meet at the bar every other week, to watch some games. So that'd be my best advice to you. Lean on the people you love. Call home more frequently. Like, I talk to my mom and dad now more than I did when I was in Portland, and they lived close to me. Keep those home connections close also. That'd be my best advice.
You said something I love, which is you recommended he goes on adventures. And it takes me back to my time in Honolulu. I used to walk from Ala Moana, where I lived, to Diamond Head every morning and then back along the coast. Mm-hmm. And it was the most beautiful walk of my entire life. I loved it. But it also it gave me a deeper connection to the place I live, my neighborhood. Yeah. And literally physically walking around your neighborhood helps you get a better sense of the area. And then I loved going on little trips. Like, I'm going to this week, this beach or that beach or this fun little mountain or this hike, and going on little excursions in and out to certain places, almost like little runs into different areas of the location I used to live in. Yeah. It's awesome. And it helps you familiarize yourself, but also helps you just experience joy, and adventuring is fun, man. It's so huge.
Yeah. Adventuring is a big part of it. And, transparently, I'm not great at it. I love to sit at home, watch and digest football. I still love to play video games. And so things will keep me in the house. And, shout out to my fiance. She's the reason I get out of the house half the time. But yeah, go out there and experience some things.
We're so different because I'm the guy on Google Maps, oh, what is that mark on the satellite imagery? And I'm like, I'm going to go find that mountain. Like, I'm just always in my truck driving everywhere. Hey, so people are getting to know you as a co-host of the show. Yeah. People will want to hear this. You mentioned it. What games do you play? Like, what do you do when you game?
Oh man, right now I'm really on Valorant. Really? Valorant, yeah, it just came to console, so I can finally play it. My base game, if you will, is Call of Duty. I love all the Call of Duties, and I recently got into NBA 2K. I've got some friends who I now play with, and it's great to get on there and run 5. So those are my core 3 right now.
I love the 3-on-3 mode with 2K. You know what I'm talking about, where
Yeah.
you like pick three. It's like a pickup game almost. I've done that tournament style at my friends' houses. It's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Me and Logan, we've mentioned Logan. He's literally been on the show. We play Fortnite about every weekend, him and I, and like we just talk for hours about football. And like the way I watched the USC Michigan game this weekend was it's like off to my right. Fortnite's right in front of me. I'm like on the headset with Logan, watching the game, making fun of Michigan, watching them end up winning and beating USC, but we're playing Fortnite the entire time. It's just a blast, man. Like that's a fun way to hang out with your friends, is on a headset playing games. It's like FaceTime, but you're doing something while you're talking.
It is, and that's what my fiance doesn't understand. She thinks I'm like just staying at home, not doing anything. But what I'm actually doing, it's like
Is she right there?
It's like getting together with the fellas. You know, everybody's on the mic. We're talking trash. You know, we're shooting the shit. Half the time, it's not even about the game. It's about probably something football related. Yeah, those are some of my favorite experiences. It's just that's part of the way I stay connected with people back home is gaming.
Yeah, you know, part of the when I moved to Hawaii, you know, Sean, you went to high school with Sean. He's my best friend. When I moved to Hawaii, him and I played Fortnite all the time. And Fortnite's just an easy game. It's free. Everyone has it. You can play it on any console. So it just became the way we would hang out. And so my advice too to Gabe, is a guy who moved away from his hometown. If you got friends who game, it's a great way to like build community, feel like you're hanging out together, even if you're in different locations. It helps a little bit.
Yes. Amen.
Next one is from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, he says, "Hey Zach, warning, this is a long one, and it's not related to the post, but I thought it's worth reading because he wrote in. I answered it. He wrote in about a workplace relationship, and I said, be really cautious and careful if you pursue someone at work. Here's the follow-up to anyone who wanted to know about Jeffrey. He says, this isn't a nickname post, but rather a follow-up to a write-up I had a while ago about workplace relationships. After a few weeks of sitting on it, I decided to ask her to get some coffee after a shift one day. I know that, like you said, it's dangerous to eat where you shit, but I just felt like something was there and hadn't been in the dating scene in a while and wanted to finally take a jump to see where things would lead. Instead, it led to kind of a bummer day. After initially agreeing to the date, I was then stood up the day it came. She messaged me after saying she was already seeing someone and didn't think it'd be fair to either one of me or the other guy, but didn't really process it when I initially asked her at work. For the record, I'm not mad about that, just frustrated the thought didn't cross her mind sooner. I'm really conflicted on how I feel right now. On one hand, it's probably for the best we just stay workplace acquaintances, but on the other, it's so deflating to finally work up the courage to ask someone out, but then be shut down after. Sorry this isn't really a question, but figured I'd let you hear the follow-up story to get your thoughts or reaction to it. Thanks as always. Keep up the great work, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I love you, man, but I told you, be really careful pursuing someone at work. I never do it. It terrifies me. The thought is it can go bad way more ways than it can go good. And I just really encourage people. I know when you leave high school or college, like often the only way you're interacting with people is at work, but you just should not meet romantic partners at work, in my opinion. Nathan, do you want to weigh in at all? You don't have to.
Man, I technically met my fiance at work. You know, we were...
No way, I didn't know that.
We were both employees at the Portland State Athletic Department. In a way, we met in the training room, you know.
Get the hell out of here. No. You met in college, bro. Get out of here.
Yeah, I can't say I have a great opinion on it just because, you know, fortunately I didn't meet my fiance in the workplace, but I've seen happy relationships in the workplace. One of my good buddies at my old job, him and his girl are going on a couple years now. I think it's just totally situationally dependent and where yours and theirs emotional maturity is at. I don't think any situation is one-to-one, but I do think that, you know, workplace relationships certainly can invite more trouble, especially if you're on the same like working unit or working team. That can get hairy because then it's no longer about work. Like things can get kind of personal, if you know what I'm saying.
And you can't get away if anything goes south too. Like you're really locked in there.
Say you both work at the banana factory and you both, you know, are packing you're packing the bananas and then she's sealing the pack shut. But if she doesn't like the way that you've packed the bananas, she's not going to seal it shut. How you see what I mean? But if you're at the banana factory,
totally real job.
Right, but if you're packing bananas, right, and she's on, the accounting team, like counting the boxes, I feel like that's a little bit different. Are we making sense here, chat?
Yeah.
As long
there's a difference between someone you passively see at work.
Yeah, there needs to be, I feel like, a little more degree of separation. It might alleviate, I think, what Zach is getting into as far as work getting tough. But like I said, I've got my fiance. We met at the good old Portland State University. I don't have to worry about any of that.
What I will say, the only time I would really mess with dating someone at work is if you're like, hey, this is my husband or this is my wife, like where it's like, hey, this is really, that's possible. But you got to really pick your battle really carefully if you're going to pursue that, because it's got to be like a really serious moment, and do not casually mess around with people at work. It's just a bad idea. You just really are asking for trouble. I want to read now. I put a post out there. I said, we got to come up with a nickname for our co-host, Nathan Hawthorne.
I'm the Jag.
And so this is now before yours is the Jag. I want to read you the things people wrote in though, because it's funny. Okay. So Kenny is the worst offender here. He says Nathan Hawktua, which is like Sam immediately commented underneath it, jail.
Jail.
Like,
right to jail.
What's the connotation there? Are you the one doing the Hawktua? Are you getting? I mean, that's a weird.
Right to jail.
Kenny, you're out of bounds there. That's bad news.
Right to jail.
Someone said if he has a cornerback instead of a wide receiver, it could have been the ball hawk, like Hawthorne. I don't think that's great either. Ice Planet Hawthorne, as like Hoth
yeah.
and Star Wars.
I have been known to be called Hoth in general.
Hoth, yeah. How about the Thorn in Zach's side? Kind of interesting.
Nope, that title works exclusively for like 3 people. My dad, my fiance, and one of my good friends who's going to be my best man. Like, I'm definitely a thorn in their side.
This one's terrible. Star Trek Man says, Nay Man, which is, sorry, that doesn't hunt for me at all. That's a bad one.
Where's my Robin mask? I don't know. I feel like I'm a sidekick with that nickname. It's Nay Man.
Balin lives in Eugene, Oregon. He says Natty Nathan because he's an Oregon fan. And Oregon is so natty this year. And then that little emoji where you're like...
I thought he was going to reference my... I don't know if you want to call it excessive intake of Natty Light while I was at the U of O, but I see where he's going. I like that. I love that.
How about Big Nate? Simple, effective, iconic. I think that's what SDS 4800 says.
Big Nate. I'm just not that big of a guy, but I like it.
Colin says Natty Ice.
Yeah, okay. Beer representing. I get it.
Owen gives us a classic Nate Dog.
Nate Dog.
That's just thrown around so much.
Love that.
Everyone has a Nate Dog, right?
I never get tired of that one, though.
You like that one? Here's a wild one. This one's out of left field. I actually sent you this one. You know this one ahead of time. Gabriel says, hey, Zach and Nate. I don't have a good nickname to share, but I just wanted to throw something out because I don't think anyone else in the audience is going to say it. Nathan is freaking adorable, and his smile is infectious. He brings such a good energy to the show. Keep up the great work. And then like a little like the emoji with the 2 dots and then the P like sticking out the tongue. Gabriel's got a crush on you, man. That's what I'm hearing at least.
Yo, Gabriel, like, do I need to be worried about you? Are you trying to shoot me a DM or something?
Or not. You don't have to. That was weird. Lionheart says, as the person who came up with HVAC, Zach, my submission is Bathan because he lives in the Bay Area.
Bathan, okay. I thought Bay as in like babe, like he's a babe. Nathan kind of leaning back into the whole. Hold on, can we go back to the adorable thing? Like, why adorable? Do I look like a teddy bear to you guys? Like, I guess handsome would have been fine. But adorable? All right. But Bathan, I don't hate. You know?
Well, you're the co-host before anyone else. You're like the Bay of the show, maybe, is the analogy.
Yeah.
Elwood ends us off here, says he's got 3 I really like. So number 1 is Portland State Nate. Not bad.
Nah, I hate that one.
Okay. You don't want to remember the memories.
I hate Portland State.
Zach's first mate, Nate. Kind of fun.
Nate the first
Like
mate.
you're like the XO.
Yeah, Nate the
that's
first
not
mate.
bad.
First mate Nate. Ooh.
My first mate, Nate. I kind of like that,
First mate
actually.
Nate. Got
Joining
some
me
traction.
is my first mate, Nate. Kind of works. And then you'll love this one. Nathan, run the damn ball, Hawthorne.
Run the ball. Run the damn football. I love that one.
You've got one, though, the Jag. Explain that to people. I've actually never known the story why you've been called the Jag your entire life. It's like your social media handle on everything.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So, first year of football, second or third grade, I can't remember. Our entire team chose nicknames, and I thought for sure.
And it's because you're just a guy.
Excuse me.
I'm kidding.
What?
Ironically, you chose the acronym for just a guy,
know.
so I don't know.
Shout out Steve Smith Sr. kind of ruining it for me. But we had to choose nicknames, and I chose Jaguar. I was a very self-aware young kid, and I was like, I'm black and I'm fast. Like, I want to be a Jaguar. That's me. Because Speedy was also already taken. I was ridiculously fast as a kid, if you guys didn't know. So, yeah,
What happened to you?
I got old.
Sorry.
My leg stopped growing. I don't know. Yeah, and that became my nickname. And so all of my friends, like at practice, would call me Jaguar. And I went to a different school than they did, so it never really crossed over. And then in high school, we all started going to the same school. And yeah, Jaguar, just shortened to Jag, became my name. And it was kind of like my alter ego getting on the football field. It was Jaguar. And so now it's kind of it's my handle on everything. Always number 32.
The Jag.
The Jag 32.
What's 32? Is that because they were like the 32nd team in the NFL, or what's the...
This year, yeah. But 32, the Colts was the name of my very first team. And the running back for the Colts at that time, which is the position when I played, was Edgerrin James. And I was a big, big fan of him, Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, that whole team. And so I was like, I want to be like Edgerrin James. I think he's an amazing running back. And so I stuck with 32. And then it just be,
I love that.
I just stuck with it.
Well, do you like... Is there one that stands out to you you'd like to carry on with?
No.
No, none of them?
None of
Okay, to be continued, guys. Sorry. I tried with first mate Nate,
First
but...
mate Nate has some potential. But if I catch any of you guys on the Discord calling me first mate Nate, I'm going to slap the shit out you. As Steve Smith Sr. would say.
Let's go back to football here. And by the way, to the audience, thanks for letting me take the detour. I think it's fun to answer questions. I also just think we haven't had a great opportunity to get to know Nathan. That's kind of what hopefully that segment did. Let's talk about Minnesota, man. The Vikings beat Houston 34-17 during NFL Week 3. It was a surprise to me. It was a statement win. You look at the resume now for Minnesota, it's not nothing. They beat the 49ers. I know they dominated the Giants, but they still beat the crap out of the Giants, what you're supposed to do. They've now dominated Houston, who I view as a Super Bowl contender. It's not nothing, man. The Vikings are 3-0. What do you make of them?
Vikings might be a very legit team. And whatever my prediction was for them, add like 4 wins to that. Oh, my goodness. I thought that without Kirk Cousins and without a quarterback that I thought was going to be great, that they were going to really struggle. And we thought their defense would be better this year for sure, but the offense wasn't going to play complementary football, and that was going to lead to problems. It turns out both the offense and the defense are incredible. Sam Darnold looks like an MVP candidate between him and Josh Allen. I think that they're playing the best football right now. But this Brian Flores defense, man, oh my goodness, it is just ripping people apart. And I love the breakdowns that people are putting out there right now of how they are disguising their coverages. And they're not scared when you go in motion. They're like, okay, we're still going to look like we're running man across the board. We're going to have like 8 dudes walked up near the line of scrimmage, but then all of a sudden we're in cover 2. It's some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen. And when you have a defense that has that much trust that, hey, I might be over here right now, but you know that by the snap, I'm going to be where I'm supposed to be, whether that's the hook, the hash, that's the deep hole, or wherever. That is such an incredible thing to see. I couldn't be more impressed with the Vikings over these first 3 weeks. I think that they're one of the teams that isn't going to fade. Like, it's not like a first couple weeks, oh, nobody knows. Like, this team is very for real.
It makes me think of the Dick LeBeau defenses back in the day. That's who I was talking about the Steelers recently. That's who in Pittsburgh had a team that just they would walk around pre-snap and like it was really hard to get an idea who was coming, who's part of the run force, who's part of the coverage, who's going to blitz. You have no idea when 8 guys just milling around, walking around pre-snap. Like you really can't get a read on what their defense is doing, and that's what Minnesota does all the time.
Yeah.
There's a reason they have 16 sacks in 3 games. Part of that's playing, the Giants. Part of that's getting after Brock Purdy and now C.J. Stroud in week 2 and 3.
Yeah.
It's really this was a statement win. Not only winning, but putting it to the Houston Texans and pulling away at the end and dominating. It's especially, by the way, let's be clear. No Jordan Addison, no TJ Hawkinson. Like I thought if it was ever going to be a problem with Sam Darnold, hey, they've only got Justin Jefferson this week. The weapons are limited. Mm-hmm. That wasn't even a problem. And it's not like this is a bad Texans defense either. I just think more and more like you have to look at the Vikings and respect them. And they've legitimized themselves. Here's my question to you. You're convinced by Minnesota, but not Buffalo, and that's weird to me. They're both 3-0. They're both dominating people. Is it just because Minnesota's beat up on Houston and the 49ers?
Yeah, Minnesota's beat teams that I thought were very, very, very good. Meanwhile, I don't think that Buffalo has. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I also think that kind of contrary, or another part of this game is people have a full year of tape on C.J. Stroud now. And this is one of the things I wanted to call out in terms of tampering the expectations for the Houston Texans. When people know what you want to do, they're going to take it away. And they're going to test your skill set to see what else you have in the chamber. You know what I'm saying? So all those passes that, you could complete last year, guess what? They're dropping somebody into that window because they know you like to put it there. And no matter how many weapons you have, if you're covering the areas of the football field that you like to throw the football, it's going to be a problem. I also think that Houston was really, really missing Joe Mixon. They had absolutely zero rushing attack that entire game. And obviously, once you start getting down a couple of touchdowns, it was 14-0 in a blink of an eye. You kind of have to abandon the run game. But nobody scored in the second quarter, so it wasn't really out of hand. Like, you still could have run the football, but I don't think Cam Akers has the vision. And then obviously they don't trust another running back to give them enough carries. So missing Joe Mixon definitely hurt. And combo that with Brian Flores taking away what CJ Stroud likes.
Well, I want to peacefully add to it's not just Joe Mixon, it was also Dameon Pierce. They were down to their third string running back. So like they were really, again, you're on your third string running back against a really good defense. I want to say this: how wild is it? You look around the NFL right now. Probably to me, the MVP candidates in the NFL right now, Josh Allen and Sam Darnold have got to be the top. They're not. If you look at Vegas, the Vegas odds right now, you've got Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts. It's a while. Then you still go through Joe Burrow, Kyler, Dak, Brock Purdy, and then you get to Sam Darnold. So Sam Darnold isn't top 2 yet. I think he should be. Through the first 3 weeks, it's Sam Darnold or Josh Allen that should be viewed as the NFL MVP favorite, in my opinion, if you're judging on just the 3 weeks we've seen. Sounds like the question is people don't believe it's going to continue in Minnesota. I think it's cool. You look back at that 2018 draft class. It was Baker, it was Sam, it was Josh Allen, Rosen, and Lamar. And to see Sam Darnold kind of resurge his career, what do you do in Minnesota? I think you just if he wins NFL MVP this year, you look incredible, you win a playoff game or something, he's your quarterback from here on out, right, in Minnesota, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have anything above 10 wins, he's your quarterback, and J.J. McCarthy can sit for another year. Don't rush him in. Don't, Trey Lance to Jimmy Garoppolo the situation. Don't force him in if it doesn't need to happen, right? Otherwise, you're going to end up with an unhappy quarterback. You're going to end up with an unhappy backup quarterback. And who knows? I can't remember how long Sam Darnold's contract is, but it might only be a year. I certainly need to fact check that. So somebody may be willing to pay him out the ass because they feel like he's been revived. You know what I mean? So those are some other things to consider, but I don't know why people don't think this is going to be sustainable. Their defense picked up Andrew Van Ginkel, who was playing at an extremely high level last year for the Dolphins. They grabbed Stephon Gilmore to be a corner. Byron Murphy Jr. is their nickel corner. They got Shaq Griffin. They've got Cam they've got a serious back end. And I think that's why they're able to be so confusing is you have these long, rangy, athletic guys, Gilmore a little bit older and slower, but regardless, they just make it so tough on you to understand what's going on. And again, on the flip side, Bobby Slowick and CJ Stroud are going to have some work to do this season to say, hey, last year was great. We've seen a couple of defenses kind of take away a few things. What's your next development? What's your next step to become a more complete NFL quarterback? And I'm excited to see that because I think that both of them can do it this year.
One thing that really stands out, watching this game, Houston had so many penalties. They kept getting in their own way. I believe there was a sequence where they had three false starts all in a row.
Yeah.
Just bang,
and they were in the red zone and got out of field goal position early in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they kept getting in their own way consistently in Houston. I'd love to. I think this might be a wild take. This is a potential Super Bowl game. If Minnesota, plays this out and can win the NFC, I think Houston's in the mix as well, given the weapons they've got, given what they got going on. I'm not saying it's likely. These are both dark horse Super Bowl teams, but it's possible these two teams rematch later in the year in a game like the Super Bowl. And I'd want to see that play out with a second shot for Bobby Slowick to take a stab at this defense and hopefully a Houston Texans team that can be way more disciplined and not have 11 penalties for a ton of yards.
Yeah. I think that it's obviously a potential because one team's NFC, one's AFC, but I think it's more likely that we would see the Minnesota Vikings tread their way there than we would see the Texans make it out of the AFC. I don't think it's likely for either of them. Again, I think that both teams are going to have good seasons, but I still just think that there's better, more complete teams that are going to be deeper at the end of the year. But I could be wrong.
So Sam Darnold has a 1-year contract. It means it's over after this year. I really don't want to give Sam Darnold a ton of money anywhere other than Minnesota. Like, he's been in Carolina. He's been in the Jets organization. Neither was great. Now, neither was a good situation really either. But situation matters. Coaching matters. The teammates around you matter. Sam Darnold with this team, this coaching staff, the weapons he's got around him in Minnesota is a great fit. I'm not confident that translates somewhere else, somewhere, I don't know, like Seattle or like the Giants or something.
Yeah.
Like Sam Darnold, imagine him back in New York just with the other team. That's a disaster, right? I don't think he goes anywhere other than Minnesota if he does play this out and keeps playing at a high level, correct?
Yeah, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a situation that's going to be as perfect as Minnesota is for him. I think Minnesota has leverage in that way. I don't think he gets anything that starts with a 5, but I think something in the 4s could be possible.
Explain that. In the 4s, what do you mean?
Like, he's not getting $50 million, I don't think. Nobody's going to pay him nobody's going to pay him like they did Jordan Love or Tua Tagovailoa. I think that...
Oh, you mean a year? You mean yearly?
Yes, yearly. So something
Okay,
that
got it.
starts
I
with
was
40-something a year.
Yeah.
I think is
I like
very
a cool,
plausible.
I think 3 years, $100 million to Minnesota makes sense.
If
it continues.
Right, so we painted the scenario that if this were to continue, he wins MVP, maybe they make a deep playoff run. Do you think he's going to take 30-something million a year? And again, we just said that Minnesota has leverage, right? So
why? I don't think he's going to win MVP, right? That's a different conversation entirely.
But that's kind of what we laid out as the criteria for him being retained in Minnesota, right? If they're going to say, "Hey, Sam, you're going to be our guy for another year," for JJ McCarthy, and maybe it makes more sense, right? Because JJ McCarthy didn't get to play at all this year and gets to practice very little this year because of that injury. So yeah, we'll have to see, but I don't think he would take anything in the 30s. Even to
where he
stay
could
with
go.
Minnesota.
You know what team could offer Sam Darnold money? I don't know if it's a ton of money because I think they're limited by the guy they currently got to pay, but maybe they could do a Bobby Manila deal, and if the guy retires, they can push it out a long time.
You're about to say the Dolphins.
Bro. Yeah, dude. They got it. They need I think Tua's done. I hate to say that. I think it's true. And Sam Darnold in Miami with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Mike McDaniel, pretty interesting. Plus, remember, Sam has worked in San Francisco. Like, he knows this terminology.
Very
He
true.
can run that offense in Miami.
Valid.
I don't know, man. That's interesting to me. That's the only other place I think Sam could go out of Minnesota and do really well, honestly.
I could see that.
Philly beat New Orleans 15-12 on Sunday. It was a weird, ugly game. I would say Philly kind of got away with one here.
Did anyone want to win that game? Golly.
It was 3-0 at halftime. The Saints led. I want to say this. I felt really bad for one thing. The Saints defense played
Lights out.
except for 2 plays. 2 plays all game. They gave a massive Saquon Barkley run down to the goal line that led to a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And then with seconds left in the game, they gave up on a little simple mesh concept, an underneath route to Dallas Goedert. He takes it for like 61 yards. It sets up another touchdown. Other than 2 plays, the Saints played like a perfect game on the defensive side of the football, which I don't know what to make of that, because you can't really walk away praising Philly for their great offensive performance, and you can't really walk away hating on the New Orleans defense. You give up 2 plays, but for the rest of the game, you were great. Weird game to analyze. What do you make of this one?
I look at this game the same way I looked at the Lions versus Tampa Bay game, in the sense that you had a team that is, I think, more talented, being Philly, outgaining and probably playing better as a whole, but was just unable to win the football game. Like, the Eagles outgained them, what was it, 460 to like 220 yards? Like, they doubled them up on yards. It wasn't even close. And to have 460 yards and only 15 points to show for it is really, really scary. You need to be putting more points up if you have 460 yards of offense. I think that goes back to, that's why you pay a guy like Saquon Barkley, because at any moment he is a game breaker for you. He didn't have a necessarily incredibly efficient day on the ground, but what he did is he busted out that like 59, 60-yard run, and that completely changes the momentum of the game. You know, he'd been bottled up most of the day, a few good runs. And again, we complimented the Saints defense already, but that's what makes guys like Saquon so special and why you pay them, because of that game-breaking ability right there.
It's also cool, you know, week 2, they have that 3rd down play where he drops what would have been the first down to ice the game against Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So for Saquon to get redemption the following week and have 2 touchdowns, again, let's say it out loud, 17 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns, and especially the play that really got the game back in conversation and in question and helped Philly ultimately win.
He just saved a lot of jobs.
He had 2 touchdowns. Those are the 2 touchdowns they won. Yeah,
he saved a lot of people's jobs with that touchdown run.
Yeah.
But
let's also acknowledge Philly's offense was rough. I know they're missing A.J. Brown.
Yeah, that certainly hurts.
It's not great. I think you got to be looking sideways at Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore right now, correct?
I think I'm not sure if it's Kellen Moore or if it's Jalen Hurts turning the ball over or making a few bad decisions. I think that he has continued to look better, but he still did have an interception and he still had a fumble lost. And I think that that's probably what made this game, you know, where you were doubling up your opponent's yards. I think that's what probably kept it close and made it such a panic. Something is certainly not right offensively. Their defense showed up, and I think that Saints team that had this offensive explosion the first 2 weeks really got reined in. I don't know if I wouldn't look at Kellen Moore as much as I would look at just Jalen Hurts needing to take care of the football. Anytime you give the opponent the ball, you're hurting your team.
6 turnovers in 3 games it's crazy. They're 2-1 actually with that consideration.
Yeah. And let's look at when those turnovers were. So you throw an interception early in the first quarter, doesn't really hurt you, but then on that next drive, you've got the fumble lost. Like, how are you supposed to get any momentum going, especially in that first half, if you just don't have the football? And then you turned it over on downs. Mm-hmm. So your first half possessions, punt, interception, fumble, over on downs.
Yeah.
It's not very good.
Well, and also, man, not taking the field goal before halftime was a wild move. Like, the aggressiveness of Nick Sirianni's got to be wearing thin in Philly. I think Philly fans are really getting tired of the aggression without results. If you're going to take risks all the time, you got to deliver at some point. And now, multiple weeks in a row, we've seen Philly take great risks and it not pay off. And it's like, dude, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, we got to stop being so... We got to be a little more risk averse and a little more careful with the football.
And if you're running a 4th down play call, please, for the love of all that's good in the world, and we'll talk about this again later, stop having guys go horizontal. You need 1 yard. Guess where the yards are? They're right in front of you. They're forward. Okay, going sideways, those yards don't count. And you lose momentum. You lose the ability to fall forward. Stop having these guys go horizontal, attack somebody, get down their throat with the football. Nate, run the damn football Hawthorne is here today.
I think the Eagles' defense was above and beyond, though, what they did. Shutting down what's been a really productive Saints offense most of the year. It's not nothing, right?
No, not nothing at all. I think it's, how do I put this? That Clint Kubiak offense, I think, caught a lot of people off guard those first 2 weeks. I believe they beat the Raiders week 1. Carolina, I'm sorry. Yeah, so bad team.
Carolina,
bad
then
team
Dallas.
week 1.
Both teams by a lot.
You jumped on Dallas, who can't stop a nosebleed with the run game. But yeah, then you run up a team that's got like a guy like Jalen Carter in the middle. A little bit tougher to run the football. You're going to have a little bit less time for Derek Carr to throw the football. And if you sit back and you take away those deep balls from Shaheed and you keep everything in front of you, that offense appeared to be a little bit harder to stop. So I think, again, they caught some people off guard, but I think if you have a defensive coordinator as smart as, oh my goodness, why am I blanking on his name?
Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio. Yeah, they're going to figure something out. And Vic Fangio, having played, in Denver, he's no stranger to difficult offenses to cover. He had to fight Patrick Mahomes for a couple years there. He can figure things out. He's not a dumb guy.
Here's something interesting. The next 5 games for the Saints are at Atlanta, then at Kansas City, then they played Tampa, Denver, who looked really good week 3, and then at the Chargers. These are 5, I think, tougher games than people are realizing. The Saints are going to get tested. They're going to get hit in the mouth. Atlanta is not easy. They've gone toe-to-toe with some really good football teams. Kansas City's a really good football team. Tampa and Denver are no slouch. The Chargers have their flaws, but they're not an easy out. We're going to learn a lot about the Saints in the next 5 games in New Orleans.
Yeah, we certainly will. I think they beat Tampa pretty handily. Pretty handily is the wrong word. I think they beat Tampa, and I don't think that's in question in my opinion. But yeah, we're going to figure out how good this team is with a lot of teams. And I think this is the funny thing about week 3. I really thought we were going to find some more resolution in week 3, start to identify some patterns. And then it just went the complete other way, and I'm even more confused. But yeah, we're gonna see how the Saints are doing here in the next couple weeks.
Well, that's why the NFL is great. It's unpredictable, and there's a lot of outcomes that you can't foresee, and things go differently than you expect. College football, I love it, but other than the USC Michigan game this weekend, like the Tennessee game wasn't close. It wasn't interesting. You look around college football, there wasn't a lot. We're blessed with one great college football this weekend. We'll talk about it later. But other than that, I look around college football, I'm like, there's nothing of note or nothing interesting here unless you want to watch a Notre Dame game.
Ooh, did you see?
Which I don't.
Did you see Oregon State beat Purdue? Oh,
yeah. Hey, Washington State went toe to toe with San Jose State. I mean, but in my point, week to week, the NFL delivers, and the NFL you just can't predict, and it's so awesome to watch every week.
It is.
Before we move on, I want to give a shout out to Dallas Goedert. 10 catches, 170 yards. I don't know what to say about it, but that's a big game, especially after the slower, quote unquote, slower start he had to the year, especially with AJ Brown out. He showed up when they needed it in Philly, and that's awesome.
Yeah, agreed.
The Steelers beat the Chargers 20-10. Look, man, I love Pittsburgh a lot. I'm a big fan of Pennsylvania, and looks like they've got a franchise quarterback. They won't commit to that. I don't know what's going on there. I think they're trying to save face. They want to massage Russell Wilson's ego. They want to keep the pressure on Justin Fields so he just keeps the fire under his belly and keeps going. Mike Tomlin went out of his way to not name Justin Fields their QB1. Kind of weird, but he looks like it. He looks like the franchise quarterback. Justin Fields, say what you want. He's getting better every time I watch him. And he's not where he needs to be yet, but he's making great progress. And I was really impressed with Justin Fields. What do you make of the Steelers beating the Chargers 20-10, other than your boy Justin Herbert leaving the third quarter, not coming back? He's now injured.
Yeah, I think that was the crux of the game, and that's what allowed Pittsburgh to not run away with it, but kind of put the stamp on the game and say, hey, we're going to be able to win this football game. After that, they followed it up with a field goal, and then obviously another field goal and a touchdown in the fourth quarter. At that point, the Chargers offense just couldn't get anything going whatsoever. I think, again, we highlight how strong the defense played, especially in that first half and the second half. They made it really, really hard after the Chargers had that first touchdown to move the football and find easy yards and make it so difficult. And then with Justin Fields, he's taking better care of the football. I do think that interception wasn't great. He kind of stared it down and he just tried to rifle it in there. I'm going to give him some grace on that because sometimes you're just trying a little bit too hard. But in the macro, I think he's looked really, really good. He's had really calm and poised feet in the pocket. There's been a couple of throws where the pocket gets muddy. And in previous years when he was with the Bears, he would have tucked and ran for his life and tried to make a play. But he's standing in there and throwing the football. And we have to commend him for having that growth. I still hate the Arthur Smith offense. I think that Justin Fields still has more in the tank, but I think the Steelers can be optimistic that Justin Fields is going to continue to grow. And however the Steelers want to handle the quarterback situation, by all means. And on that same note, back to a similar conversation that we've had with the Bills, I'm not quite sure that the Pittsburgh Steelers have played necessarily the toughest schedule, you could say. Snuck Atlanta in week 1, but then they beat Denver and LA, probably 2 bottom teams in the AFC West, potentially. Yeah. I'm sorry, you got the Raiders in there, definitely not the bottom. But yeah, 2 teams that are going through, a lot of change. Meanwhile, they have the continuity. So they've got another easy week, I think, coming up in Indianapolis. I think they're going to rip Anthony Richardson to shreds. And then you got Dallas. That game seems really interesting to me with how limited Dallas's offense is.
Oh, come on, dude. They're going to dominate Dallas. Can I step in and say this, man? I remember talking about Pittsburgh's schedule and saying those final 10 games are really tough. But we've kind of seen enough now to know Cleveland's not that great. They're a bit overrated. Philly's really good. Baltimore's good. Kansas City's good. Cincinnati, I've got my doubts about. But you look at the schedule the rest of the year for Pittsburgh. Indy, Dallas, Raiders all feel like victories. The Jets game is interesting. I think Aaron Rodgers is running for his life and in trouble with TJ Watt. I love the Giants matchup. So I think they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to be like 8-0 at that point. I think you probably lose to Washington, but it's interesting. Then it gets really tough. Baltimore, I think you can beat Cleveland. You can beat the Bengals. You beat Cleveland again. I think his team could beat Philly. You get Jalen Hurts throwing interceptions and making mistakes. I just wouldn't sleep on the Steelers. They're better than I thought they would be, and they look like a 10-win football team. I don't know if they're much more than that. That's aggressive. I think they're going to have a lot of losses at the end of the year, but if they can keep beating teams that they should, which they've done to this point, and making noise on defense, getting after quarterbacks, making them really uncomfortable, the sky's the limit for this team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're a playoff team. What I see 3 weeks into the year in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this offensive line holds up. They didn't have a 100-yard rusher, but they seemed more committed to running the football with Najee Harris last week. I think he had 18 carries-ish, something like that. So that's really, really positive to see. But when Fields has to throw the football, I just want to see them play in a game where maybe they're down, 7 to 10 points or something where, hey, the ball has to be in the air. Yeah. And I know that maybe is a little bit nitpicky right now, but I want to see what that offense looks like when there's a little bit more pressure on, where you really, really need to score the football. I feel like we haven't seen that yet.
We're not going to see that for a while. Indy can't do that. I don't think Dallas can do that with their offensive line right now. Gardner Minshew's not going to put up points on this defense. Aaron Rodgers, he might beat the Steelers, but the way he plays ball right now, it's just a lot of control in the ball. It's really slow. They've only got one real target with Garrett Wilson. I don't see the Jets running up, 40 points on the Steelers defense. The Giants aren't going to do it. Washington maybe could. Baltimore maybe could. It's not till way later in the year you even play a team that's capable of putting up a ton of points, in my opinion, on the Steelers defense.
That's fair.
And by that point, if you're 8-0, you're 7-1. Justin Fields will have had a lot of reps and a lot of film to learn from and grow from. He's going to be a different quarterback week 9 or 10 than he is right now. He's just going to keep getting better, in my opinion. He works too hard. He's got a lot of great film. He's clearly learning from his mistakes week to week. I think his Steelers team is just going to get better and better, and to the point where week 12, I might buy a Justin Fields jersey as a show of good faith. I really believe in him. He's getting better and better, and I like where things are going in Pittsburgh.
Riddle me this.
Okay.
So say this team, you said that they could be a 10-win team. I still think they're closer to 8 wins and 10 wins. Okay. Say they are a 9-8 team again, right? Mike Tomlin never below 500, or even 10-7. What do you do? Do you stick with Justin Fields and run it back next year?
I think so, yeah. Because here's the thing.
What kind of ceiling are you giving yourself, though? If you rock this thing back with Justin Fields and have a good defense and continue to try and win with a lackluster offense?
I don't know that. Again, I think I have more faith in Justin Fields than you. The conversation should be had, is Arthur Smith the right coach or not? But I think if Arthur Smith can make Justin Fields into a good quarterback, I think this dog will hunt, man. Like, look around the conference, their division specifically. Lamar Jackson is probably the best quarterback in that conference, followed by Joe Burrow. You're going to have the third best quarterback in that conference, but a defense, it could be the best defense in that conference. A defense that could beat Lamar, that could beat Joe Burrow. You're definitely going to be, you have a quarterback that's probably better than Deshaun Watson already. And by the end of the year, you're going to have, if you have 9 wins, I think they're more like 10 or 11, honestly, in Pittsburgh. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's what I see. Just given their schedule, I think the defense is going to make a lot of noise. Quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, they're going to struggle against this defense. I really believe that. Deshaun Watson's in for a rough day. So is Daniel Jones. So is Gardner Minshew. So is Dak Prescott. Like, this defense is just better than people are giving them credit for. That goes a long way. But anyway, let's say they do win 9 games. You got an opportunity to get a really solid draft pick in the middle of the draft, build around Justin Fields, maybe get a receiver, maybe get an offensive lineman, whatever the need is at that point. I can't predict the future. I don't know this team well enough. But you invest in Justin Fields, who's going to be your best option at quarterback, your cheapest option, your most capable option, your youngest option, the guy with the most potential of anyone they could possibly bring in between now and the next season. And you run it back and you see if you can continue to get better. You're not going to find another quarterback in the middle of the draft of Justin Fields' caliber. You're just not. You're not going to be able to sign another quarterback for cheaper than Justin Fields. It's going to mess up your contract situation. You got the most expensive defense in football. The more Justin Fields plays even average football, the more clear it is he should be the long-term answer at quarterback, because they're not going to find a better solution anytime soon. You got to be horrible to find a good quarterback in today's market or have a ton of money in your salary cap. They don't have either. So Justin Fields is the guy, I think, for the long-term in Pittsburgh. 3 games in. I know that's crazy to say. I'm thinking ahead long-term, but that's what I see after 3 weeks and how much better he's getting week to week. They're keeping Russ as insurance. They're keeping him happy. They're playing to Russell Wilson's ego, but I'm getting ready to buy a Justin Fields jersey, like, for real. I think it's going to work. I think he's the guy, and he gives them the best chance to win week to week, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that all might be the case. I just feel like you're in such a purgatory by continuing to go 9-8, 8-9, 10-7, and maybe sneaking into the playoffs on a wild card spot. If I'm a Steelers fan, I would just be so frustrated to run it back next year, expecting things to be drastically different. Even if Justin Fields grows and get better, there's still not a lot of weapons on that offense. I know Calvin Austin is a great, to me, a gadget player. I know that George Pickens can make a lot of catches. I just don't see it. I don't see running it back helping them unless they get a lot better offensively. And I feel like we've seen the best Justin Fields already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand your concern, but think logically about this, Nathan. What else do you do at quarterback? Who else do you, like, okay, you go 9-8. You want to make a change. What big swing move change do you possibly make? There isn't a move out there to be made. You go get Sam Darnold. You fire Arthur Smith, who effectively is doing. I don't like to say this. I thought the play calling, they kicked a field goal, they missed it early on. I didn't like the calling on the goal line. Arthur Smith isn't perfect, but he's not been terrible. He's been better than I expected, honestly, through 3 games.
This is the best quarterback he's had.
Well, when you're average, your options are actually incredibly limited in the NFL, and that's because you're not bad enough to make big swings.
And that's what I'm saying. The Steelers team, and I said this in the predictions episode, they're in this purgatory of not being good enough to get yourself a good draft pick. And then you talked about it. They overspend on that defense, and so it makes it really, really hard to.
Are they overspending? They've held people to 10 points, 6 points, and 10 points.
Right, but at the end of the day, if you can't also score points, your ceiling is limited for how many games you can win.
You're talking like they're 1-2 or 0-3. They're 3-0. Like, and they're looking at 8-0.
They haven't beat stellar teams.
But if you are
And the only reason they won the
best-
last game is because their quarterback went down. They're going to need a lot of things to fall in their favor.
I think we just
not
disagree
bought
on
in.
Pittsburgh, man.
We do.
I actually am. I love Mike Tomlin. He's a leader I'd love to play for. I really like where they're headed, and I think they're a 10-win team. And a 10-win team this year in Pittsburgh gives you the opportunity to build off that the following year with a really good draft pick, maybe a good free agent acquisition on the offensive side of the football. And then you're looking at pushing a team like Baltimore, pushing a team like Cincinnati. If you can win 10 games or 11 games this year in Pittsburgh and then build off of it, you're looking at winning the division next year in AFC North. And if not this year, like, let's not act like Cincinnati's 0-3. The Ravens are they're not that impressive. Are you worried about the Browns? Like, I think there's still a possibility the Steelers win their division this year. And then at that point, you have to admit, are they mediocre? Are they going to win the Super Bowl? I'm not sure, but like, they're not in bad shape at all in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. I'm surprised I'm defending them as much, but I think they're doing better than people are giving them credit for, in my opinion.
So they've gone since 2020. Since 2020 when they went 12-4, right? And then they just sputtered very badly in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They've gone 9-7, 9-8, and 10-7.
But this is the first year they've had a quarterback that has a promising future, in my opinion. Big Ben to Mason Rudolph to Kenny Pickett to now finally a quarterback who's got enough potential that if he keeps getting better, is like a top 10 quarterback potentially. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he will be, but he could keep getting better. And Kenny Pickett wasn't getting better and didn't have enough potential to even be worth investing in. He was a limiting factor. I think Justin Fields theoretically isn't a limiting factor that other quarterbacks might be.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to agree to disagree there. And
man, I can't wait to see.
We don't recognize and see the same things going on.
Yeah,
it's more. I think that why go 9-8 and 10-7 again, and then dress it up and maybe go 10-7 again the next year, or maybe you know what? I don't think.
But what if they build off it?
I don't think the ceiling's there. That's how.
What if 10-7 leads to 12-5 next year?
It's definitely not going to.
Why not? Why couldn't it?
I don't think Justin Fields is good enough, and especially not paired with Arthur Smith. You can be.
We'll see.
Be a 500
I don't love
team.
Arthur Smith, and I think Justin Fields has been average, but he's getting better every week. And if that continues, then he's a problem. If he just keeps getting better every week, you're having a real tough conversation about Pittsburgh. Denver beat Tampa 26-7. And I love this one. I watched this game today. I got off work early and sat down and I watched its entirety. It was a joy to watch. And what stands out the most about Denver is Bo Nix looks weirdly similar to Drew Brees. And I know that's like, I watched a lot of tape of Drew Brees growing up. The motion, the checkdowns, the types of throws he was making in the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's not a coincidence. It's the same offense. It's the same coach. Undoubtedly, Bo Nix has watched a lot of cut-ups and coaching tape and teaching tape of Drew Brees. Like,
I'm sure
I can hear Sean Payton going like, when I had Drew Brees, here's what we did. Here's how we attack this coverage. Look at Drew Brees making this throw. Look at Drew Brees making that throw. And it shows. And I want to say this very early on, making a prediction. I'm not worried at all about Bo Nix. He's gotten better every week. He's got a great coach. He's got great support. This is the first time. It took 3 weeks. He finally put it all together. He looked really, really good. And frankly, I think Bo Nix is kind of what Sean Payton hoped Taysom Hill was going to be, where you've got a really efficient quarterback making great reads, throwing the ball really well, but also he's got a dynamic Drew Brees never had, which is an ability to run. He ran for a touchdown. He kept a couple plays alive. He's a threat to run that Drew Brees never was. So I think if you're Sean Payton, you're like, dude, I hit a home run. I love this kid. He's got a great attitude. He's a good leader. He's a threat to run. He's making all the right reads. This was the first time, and I think the first time of many to go ahead where Bo Nix put it all together. What'd you make of Denver beating Tampa 26-7?
Yeah, I thought that Tampa came back to earth a little bit after those first 2 weeks. First week was an explosion. Second week was an implosion from the Lions, I felt like. So I think we saw about how good this Tampa Bay team is going to be. Not super stellar defensively for, this new rookie quarterback to be able to come in and take advantage of you.
I mean, they're injured too, by the way, like a ton.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Their back end's injured very, very badly. But Baker Mayfield also didn't look particularly great. Was he 25 or 33? Yes, but you only threw for 163 yards. That's not very many yards for 25 completions, which tells me they had a tough time pushing the ball down the field. Was that a symptom of Pat Surtain locking up Mike Evans? There's a good chance he's probably the best corner in football, but not being able to find anyone else, whether that's Jalen McMillan or whether that's Chris Godwin, although I know he had 6 receptions. Just, again, I feel like they came down to earth. On the flip side, Broncos defense is probably a little bit better than we thought, and they look committed. And then, yeah, Bo Nix is starting to figure some things out and looking more comfortable there offensively. A lot of different receivers were activated in terms of having a reception. I thought it was great to see him get the ball to Cortland Sutton. To me, that's the guy that you have to feed for this offense to go. And if that run game can just be a little stronger, I think they're going to be a tougher team, come these later weeks in the season. I think in particular, weeks 9 and 10 against the Ravens and the Chiefs will be really, really fun to see what kind of growth the Broncos have had from now until then. They've got some challenging but winnable games in between now and then, and I'm interested to see what kind of confidence they have. But I think it was a combo of Broncos continuing to grow, which is what you love to see when you have a new coach and quarterback, and then Tampa Bay kind of, to me, coming back to earth a little bit.
Bo Nix had a back shoulder fade to Cortland Sutton that just stands out to me, where I was like,
so good.
He's getting better, man.
And you can
really
throw that all day to a guy like Cortland Sutton. Big target, great hands, knows how to adjust the body. So good.
Look, Sean Payton, after Drew Brees, kind of floundered, couldn't really find anyone. He had Jameis Winston, God bless him. He's got limitations. We love him, but come on. Taysom Hill, he never really had his pick of the litter. He got his guy, and it shows. At least in this game, it was very clear, it's clicking for Bo Nix. He's seen the field really well. He's been really well coached. He's got a great understanding. Whatever the path to helping Bo Nix, get into the NFL and get settled and get taught and get up to speed, they've really done it very well because he looks really comfortable. He looks really well prepared. I just, tip of the cap to Sean Payton, honestly, for preparing this young kid as well as they have, and then tip of the cap for Bo Nix for, taking his lumps the first 2 weeks and learning from him and getting better, but no turnovers.
Yep.
Ran for a touchdown, 25 for 36, 216 yards, a clean game. It's a huge, huge victory for Denver. Not just winning, but having Bo Nix look like potentially a franchise quarterback. And I buy in. I really believe it. What I saw, I was like, hey, that dog will hunt. He keeps doing that every week. They're going to win a lot of games for a long time in Denver, honestly.
Yeah, and again, it's that growth that you see from game to game. And I think we have seen that from all the rookie quarterbacks this year, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Bo Nix, all in different ways and at different rates, but they've been growing. And that's a positive sign.
There's a guy I want to talk about, Riley Moss. He's the number 2 corner in Denver. He is targeted the most of any corner in football. I wonder, is that because he's a limitation? I watched him give up a touchdown to, Chris Godwin caught a touchdown over him. That's going to happen. You play corner. It's the toughest position of football, in my opinion. Corner's impossible. And if you were a great receiver, you'd play receiver, not corner. It's always a disadvantage. Plus the rules work against you. He had a nice pass defended a couple times, but I want to ask the question, is it because Riley Moss is a weaker number 2 corner, or is it because Pat Surtain is so good no one wants to throw the football at him? What's going on there? Because why did Mike Evans have 2 catches for 17 yards and basically get shut down all game by Pat Surtain?
Neither of those reasons.
Let's hear it.
No, I'm not going to go there. It's a joke in poor taste.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying. No, I think, but Pat Surtain's really that guy.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams has endorsed him as a dude who's just elite. So you have a guy like that who's absolutely on clamps. You're probably not going to throw their way very frequently unless you have a look or a very specific play that you're running to take advantage of it. So, yeah, I think it's just the fact that Pat Surtain's that good, you're going to have more balls come your way, and that's why having a good second corner is so important. If you shut down one side of the field or, Surtain's following, then you got to have a guy who's comfortable and confident enough to be targeted a lot. Understand you're probably going to give up some yards, but keep getting back up and playing quality football. Not gambling because you got beat, not trying to do too much, just being, hey, I'm going to play my role. I'm going to do my best within the system.
One thing that really stands out, end of the fourth quarter, game's in hand. You're kind of just playing for pride at that point. 3 minutes left. Tampa's on the goal line, 3rd and goal, and Denver's defense got to stop. They forced a fumble, got the ball back.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see. Denver's defense is in a really good spot, better than I realized. And something I just kind of it went under the radar the first couple of weeks. This Denver defense is making plays and playing really well. I'm interested. Denver plays the Jets next week, and I don't know that the Jets have truly a good enough number 2 receiver to make enough plays. I think that Garrett Wilson, Pat Surtain is a must-see matchup. Truly, it's going to be. I don't know that people realize how fun that could be. For real, that could be the game because that's Aaron's favorite target and best target by a mile. Pat Surtain's on the best lockdown corner in football. It's going to be Mike Williams against Riley Moss is the matchup. Really, who can win that matchup?
Mike Williams. Mike Williams, his snap count slowly increasing. It's going to start to get real scary for some teams. I just wonder, Sean Payton wasn't nice when he talked about Nathaniel Hackett, right? He kind of took a shot at the guy, honestly. He did.
So Broncos at Jets, Nathaniel Hackett's former team against Aaron Rodgers, a defense playing well, a rookie quarterback against a really capable Jets defense. The stage is being set for a really interesting matchup in New York next Sunday.
The unfortunate part is no matter how that game transcribes, Nat Hackett's going to either get a lot of blame if the Jets offense doesn't look good, or he is going to get no credit if the Jets offense does look good. It's going to go to Aaron if they win. If not, Aaron's going to say something snarky about the offense and the play calling and blah, blah, blah. And it's going to automatically go to blame Nat Hackett. But you're right. It's going to be a really, really fun story. That's what the NFL does, right? They give us the best storylines every year.
I want to talk about something we actually kind of went away. We had this argument about the Steelers, and we didn't talk about one final part about the Chargers, but I think it's worth saying. So Herbert's injured. He's in question, his playing. They're missing their right tackle, Joe Alt. They're missing Rashawn Slater. Their left tackle, they're missing Joey Bosa and Derwin James on a suspension. You're missing both tackles next week for the Chargers. You got a quarterback injured. You're playing Kansas City. Do you just leave Herbert on the sideline for a week without both tackles to keep him healthy and just take the L against Kansas City?
Honestly, I probably would. If you can't protect the guy who you're paying a lot of money to in Justin Herbert, and you've got your 2 best guys at doing it, I'm not putting him out there. And heck, I might send J.K. Dobbins home too. I might say, hey, this is a backup. Not literally. You never do that in the NFL.
Yeah. But man, it's not a winnable game. I just don't. You're not wrong with protecting J.K. Dobbins as well. The rest of your season matters, and you don't want to lose it all for a game you're not going to win anyway without your quarterback. I know that's dark, but missing both tackles, potentially your quarterback, I don't know. It's a tough one for the Chargers against Kansas City.
The real scary part for Rashawn Slater specifically, Joe Alt MCL sprain, you can come back from that. You rest it, you rehab it, you can be okay. But that pectoral muscle injury is a very weird one, and especially as an offensive tackle, where a lot of what you do is set right here, right in front of that chest area, and your hands get caught and pulled in all these different directions. If that doesn't heal right and it pulls or tears, you're done for the season. So they have to be very, very careful with him. I think that I think the Chargers get a little bit of forgiveness this year baked in just because it's a new head coach. And I know that they had a great start, so the expectations shot up really quickly. But let's pump the brakes on them for now. And if I'm Harbaugh, just say, hey, I've kind of got a leash here. I've built one that says when we're healthy, we can be a very good football team. If we're not healthy, let's just take the foot off the gas. We're going to do our best to put out a great show and try and win on Sunday. But I'm not putting Slater out there. I'm not putting Alt out there, obviously. And I'm resting Justin Herbert. Period.
By the way, shout out to Joe Alt. He's played really well through 3 games. I know he's hurt now, but took on J.J. Watt, took on Jadeveon Clowney, took on who did they play week 1? Max Crosby. Like he's really and not given up much. I mean, he's really played incredibly well for a rookie right tackle.
He's such a big human being.
He's like Tristan Wirfs was his rookie year. I mean, it's just like, oh, another tackle that's just dominating as a rookie from game 1.
The exciting part is the Chargers took him knowing they already had a left tackle. And they're like, that's fine. We're going to put him at right tackle. He's that talented. And it's looked pretty good so far.
Yeah. Carolina beat the Raiders 36-22. I cannot wait to talk about this one. To start the fourth quarter, Carolina was up 33-7. And Andy Dalton coming in relief of bench quarterback Bryce Young, 26 for 37, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think it pretty clearly explains why they made the quarterback change.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to talk about here, but I want to hear from you first. What'd you make of Carolina putting it to the Raiders, and specifically Andy Dalton playing really well in that Carolina Panthers offense?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a veteran, a guy who's been around, and I saw this meme going around about why do you think Andy Dalton would be scared? He played in the AFC North against the 2010s Steelers and Ravens defenses. Like, he's seen some of the best defenses probably in the history of the game of football. And that's another thing, is he's seen a lot of football. So where Bryce Young is dropping back there, not sure what he's looking at, Andy Dalton is getting up there pre-snap and identifying things and being able to recognize a lot of change and transition on the fly. He was an MVP candidate at one point in Cincinnati. He was having a lights out year. Like, this guy can play football. Now, granted, it was kind of one of those, I don't want to call it Kirk Cousins-y type things where, you know, there's a ceiling that you can't quite get over. But I mean, he's not a slouch of a quarterback, and he's not a slouch of a backup quarterback by any means. Deontay Johnson.
He's kind of like Dak Prescott, I think, honestly. He's kind of in that conversation, like that Kirk-Dak level.
Yeah. You could make that argument. Dak certainly made more money. We're playing for the Cowboys brand. But I thought they were able to attack in the run game with Chuba Hubbard, 21 carries, 114 yards. That's awesome. Run the ball, baby. Deontay Johnson, we know, is a talented receiver, and I was alluding to this earlier. It's frustrating when you have a quarterback who can't get you the football. Great to see a quarterback that can recognize coverages and deliver it to him. Xavier Legette popped. He had a nice 35-yard catch. That's great to see from the rookie. Adam Thielen, of course, had that sick touchdown over the top. So a lot of positive things to see. Obviously, the problem was Bryce Young as far as the efficiency of the offense, and I don't think any fault of his. I think that he just was put in a really tough situation and maybe asked to do more than he was ready for. But, man, you got to be excited if you're the Panthers to see at least that Canales himself has something going. And if you're a Raiders fan, we told you guys that you were bad. I don't care that you beat the Ravens. We knew that you were bad. What say you?
It's complicated. It's actually really messy, this outcome.
Because, like I said, I'm confused more.
It shows, hey, like, people roasted the Carolina. They benched Bryce Young, and media for a week goes, well, no quarterback could do well in that offense. Bryce Young's not the problem. It's the Carolina Panthers. And then immediately in the next week, they show actually like a good quarterback, a good quarterback play works. And in this offense, if you play well and do your job well, you're going to succeed. So suddenly all the blame, the pendulum shifted way back the other direction. And I think the reality is somewhere in the middle. I think that, hey, was it the best situation for Bryce Young? No. Was he ready? No. I don't think Dave Canales did the best job shepherding him as a rookie quarterback. You look at the way Bo Nix has been handled, or I guess not a rookie, but as a young quarterback in a new offense. The way that Bo Nix was handled in Denver was clearly very different from what happened with Bryce Young and Dave Canales. And look at where Dave Canales has worked. He's worked with Geno Smith. He worked with Baker Mayfield. He's now doing well with Andy Dalton. We're one game in, but like it looks like, hey, a veteran quarterback who knows the game and can handle the tough terminology and all the nuances of the game of football works really well with Dave Canales. A young quarterback who you got to teach more to.
Can I just jump in about Canales? He strikes me as a guy that him and Callahan both strike me as, I feel like I shouldn't have to teach you this kind of guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like you were quickly saying with Bryce Young, and maybe he wasn't great at shepherding him along. Maybe that could have been the case if he's just like, all right, we're moving on from this concept. Like, you just don't get it. Okay. Anyways. You know what I mean? Sorry to
a lack of patience, a lack of willingness to accommodate.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's what this is why I'm such a believer of Mike McDaniel in Miami. Because with Tua, he was incredibly accommodating. He instilled confidence. He built an offense to fit him. He did everything he could to support him. Even when Tua gets hurt, right? His response to Tua was so loving and kind. Like, McDaniel has this ability to be whatever his quarterback needs. And not every coach has that ability. Brian Callahan doesn't seem to have that ability with Will Levis. Dave Canales doesn't seem to have that ability with Bryce Young. Doesn't mean he can't coach quarterbacks because he's done it well before.
Right.
But coaching quarterbacks and coaching a young quarterback is different.
Right.
Shout out to Cliff Kingsbury. He's got his problems, dude. He won Kyler Murray Rookie of the Year. Now he looks like a great coach for Jaden Daniels, who's a rookie quarterback. It's a different skill set to work with a young quarterback and shepherd that guy along than succeed with a veteran quarterback. That's what we're learning in the NFL right now. And this is why, like, Bobby Slowick right now in Houston has to be the most valuable potential head coach in football, because he's a guy who did it with CJ Stroud as a rookie. His ability to help a young kid come along and learn the game and be prepared and ready to go is bar none. And being a good quarterback coach doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good quarterback coach for a rookie quarterback helping teach a guy how to be a pro.
Valid.
It's a different skill set.
Valid.
Adam Thielen's on the IR. Here's what I want to talk about with Carolina. I don't have much more to add on to my diatribe, but next week they play the Bengals, so Andy Dalton plays his former team Cincinnati. Then the following week, he plays his other former team, the Chicago Bears. Like, we're going on the Andy Dalton revenge tour. I'm here for it. It's going to be fun. I don't know that they win. I'm just curious, can he continue playing at a high level? I actually think he can. I think Andy Dalton is really...
He's more than capable.
He's done a lot of good stuff. He did good stuff even in New Orleans with the Saints. Like, he's a capable quarterback. And I don't know how Adam Thielen's injury affects things, but I want to just keep your eye on the next couple weeks with Carolina. If he keeps playing well, it just further supports my theory that Dave Canales did a bad job shepherding a young quarterback, but you give him a veteran quarterback who knows what he's doing, that's good. Here's the problem with all of this, by the way. It's Dave Canales saying, hey, I'm worried for my job. I'm worried about the locker room.
Yeah.
I can't put a bad product out there week to week. We have to win. We have to be competitive.
Will fire you.
But on top of that, I think you also lose the locker room. I think it's not just the owner pressure. It's also like you're looking at your left tackle, your running back, the defensive line, your linebackers, everyone in the locker room giving their best effort week to week. And it's a clear, obvious thing. They had to all have known, hey, we're losing because our quarterback just can't figure it out. And you can't do that. In the NFL, when guys are getting paid and you're doing your best to put your best foot forward, like the locker room, I'm sure knew. We love Bryce as a person, but we see Andy Dalton in practice. He's just doing better. He's got it figured out.
Yeah.
We can't keep losing games with no chance to win because of our quarterback. We got to make the change. I think Bryce Young's bad quarterback play honestly forced their hand. And I come down a little more gentle on Dave Canales. People are hating him. Well, he's worried about his job. I mean, yes, but he's also worried about the health of the locker room and the belief of trying to win week to week. Like, you can't give your team no shot to win. You're just going to lose everyone and support everyone on your team.
Yeah, do you want this team to be down and out by week 5 and now you're definitely tanking and now your job is definitely, you're on the hot seat already? Like Frank Reich, they got rid of him, after 8 games or something like that?
We saw the Raiders down by a lot of points, and their coach Antonio Pierce put it this way. He said, guys were making business decisions, right? There was a guy, I think Jack Jones, I want to say the name, not really giving the best effort in tackling at the end of that football game. Can't blame him. Don't want to get hurt. I get it, but you also can't do that in the NFL. If you go 0-5 to start the year with Bryce Young, and it's not even competitive, week 6, everyone's making business decisions in Carolina. The culture of the locker room would have suffered dramatically and would have become toxic. Andy Dalton very clearly gave them the best opportunity to win. You had to rock with Andy Dalton. That sucks. That's brutal. But for the sake of keeping toxicity out of your locker room, you had to give your team your best shot to win week to week. And that's what Dave Canales did by switching quarterbacks.
Yep, and I support that. And it's not a knock on Bryce Young. Hopefully he can do a little bit of quarterback rehab, like have a chance to sit, watch, and learn a veteran play as opposed to having to jump in there and do it himself. So I'm excited for him to take on that challenge. And then on the flip side, the Raiders, you're telling me that 34 yards for Zamir White was the best you could muster up against that rush defense? And now I guess I don't really know how good that Carolina defense is because the offense was saying was playing such bad complementary football. But goodness gracious, you go from being able to score 20 plus on the Ravens to, if it wasn't for garbage time, you're not putting up anything against the Panthers. That's kind of concerning if you're the Raiders.
I don't want to be hacky, but is it just a defense playing with hope? Like, when you actually think you have a shot to win, you give a different level of effort, correct? And so, because the Panthers defense was top 5 in the league last year. They were a good defense. Weeks 1 and 2 of this year, they were just night and day a different, like horrible.
Yeah.
Missed tackles, bad effort. This week 3, with Andy Dalton at quarterback, the defense played better. The only thing that makes sense to me is, hey, they just thought they had a chance.
Yeah.
And so the effort was different because they actually believed they had a chance to win.
Yeah.
And that just brings more out of you.
Yeah, you believe if you get a stop, your offense has a chance to go down and score. If you don't feel like that, it's like, fuck, we're out here again. Not sure how long we're going to be out here. Could be out here for 25 plays.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's psychologically,
Yeah,
it's not even like bad effort. It's just, I thought the tackling was frankly fucking garbage the first 2 weeks in Carolina. But even if you want to give your best effort, if psychologically you just don't think you actually have a shot,
yeah.
But belief matters. It's hard. It's a weird position to be in a difficult one.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Rams, man. The Rams beat the 49ers 27-24.
Wow.
This game, honestly, was so much fun to watch. I loved it. And I want to get ahead of one thing right away. I got nothing wrong with Brock Purdy. The dude played his heart out, ran for his life, made a lot of plays with his legs, 3 touchdowns. Juwan Jennings shined. There's a lot to be said here about the 49ers. The one thing I will not tolerate is hate on Brock Purdy, blasphemy about him. He played really well, did everything he could. I thought I really credit to Brock Purdy. He's growing up in front of us.
Yeah.
And if anyone watched that game and thought Brock Purdy didn't have a great game and is not the right guy for the 49ers, I don't know what you were watching. There are problems with the 49ers. We can talk about them, but it was just it was fun. It really came down to tie game 24-24. Rams get a crazy punt return that puts them basically in field goal position. They get a couple more big plays. They kick a field goal. They win. Other than that fluke punt, it's a tie game going to overtime. What do you make of this game? I assume you watch. You live in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
What's actually annoying is because I'm in the Bay, it's on the local channel, so I can't put it as part of my multi-view with NFL Sunday tickets. So really, really annoying. But what a great game to watch. I thought Matt Stafford put on a masterclass, but I was ready to not slander Brock Purdy because I felt like he did a great job. He obviously, the stats don't lie, but the drives that they scored, the first and the second drive, I call those your scripted drives, right? You know exactly what you want to run, what you want to call. And then your next scoring drive was your first possession out of the second half. So then you had a punt, you had a fumble, you start looking at things and you're like, okay, these are the adjustments we have to make. Okay, kind of here's our script to come out at halftime here. And then you score there. And then you get your field goal. And then obviously the missed field goal is another problem. I just feel like there's still...
Off script, it's not the same?
Yeah, there's still more that Brock Purdy can do. Now, again, I don't want to have this come across as I don't think Brock Purdy is good. He balled out. He did a great job. But I don't know. And maybe if that field goal goes in, we're looking at this entirely differently because you got a tie game and you're going to overtime, versus the Rams winning. But I don't know. I just have a tough time if you only score 10 points in the second half when you're trying to close a team out and really put this team away. I don't know. Hard to describe.
Here's my pushback on you peacefully.
Yeah.
If they're great on script and they struggle off script, is that the quarterback's fault or is that Kyle Shanahan, the play caller's fault? I think it's on coaching. I think that's on you putting your quarterback in a good position to succeed. I know there's way more nuance than just that, but some of that blame has to be put on Kyle Shanahan as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like we've been pretty adversarial tonight. I'm going to go ahead and just say that I'm being overly critical of Brock Purdy there. I thought he played a good football game, a more than good enough football game to win, but the Niners just didn't put him away. And that was a problem that we saw with the almost saw with the Raiders. I'm sorry, not the Raiders, with the Ravens and the Cowboys. But yeah, I'm gonna upgrade my Brock Purdy status here. Say he played a good game.
Here's a really bad look. Juwan Jennings had 11 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's amazing. We love that.
Yep.
It was really loud how much he outshined Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk there was a drop, 3rd and 4, drive killer. Brandon Ayuk got to make that catch. He doesn't. You're paying this guy a ton of money, and he's not making plays. I mean, look, you're missing Deebo Samuel, you're missing George Kittle, you're missing Christian McCaffrey. Someone's got to step up. Why isn't it him?
That's my point right there. Because where does all of your attention go if those 3 guys are missing? Brandon Ayuk.
And he's paid like a guy who should be able to make plays still in that moment, and he's not.
Right, and he's, to me, is part of an offense that, again, like not scripts guys open, but designs plays for guys to get open, right? So if you design a play for Brandon Ayuk to get open, but it doesn't matter because he's being doubled by the safety in the corner or the nickel in the linebacker, like whatever the case is, if they're taking him away, Jawan Jennings is going to have more opportunities, right? And I think he's the guy who stepped up because they made it a point not to let Brandon Ayuk do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the Rams.
But I agree.
Oh, good.
I agree. Like, if you're paying a guy that much money, and this is why, to me, I said that Brandon Ayuk wasn't necessarily worth all of that cheddar because he benefited from being part of an offense that had a lot of weapons. You got to make that catch, and you got to find other ways to get yourself open. I don't know the timing of that offense. I don't want to, say he should have done this or that, but you can't be getting paid that kind of cheddar and not have any touchdowns or make your presence felt in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, getting shut down by Tre'Davious White.
Not a slouch.
A guy who, no, but he's past his prime, man. Like if you're that dude getting paid that money,
yeah, I'm upset.
You make plays.
I'm upset,
and it's not happening. Shout out to the Rams though. Down 14 points. It's a big comeback. There was a ball by Matthew Stafford to Tutu Atwell that I was just like,
Moneyball.
I mean, it was awesome. And let's be very clear about this. So you look at the NFC West right now. Seattle's 3-0. Arizona, the Rams, and the 49ers are 1-2. The Rams needed this win so badly. 1-2 is way different than 0-3. Mm-hmm. Psychologically, mentally, emotionally. Like, I don't know what the rest of the season looks like for the Rams, but I know that they could not afford to lose this football game. Next couple weeks, they'll play the Bears, Green Bay, the Raiders, and then Minnesota.
Yep.
Huge games. It actually is pretty favorable for them because they play then Seattle, Miami, and New England. A lot of winnable games there for the Rams, but it had to start here. Honestly, I view this team very similar to Cincinnati. The difference is Cincinnati, when pushed against the wall, didn't climb out of the hole. The Rams did. They made plays. That punt return, a couple big throws to Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
They're not 0-3 today, and that's a huge difference from 1-2 is huge compared to 1-3 or 0-3.
Yeah, and what I was shocked by was their ability to run the football on the Niners. Kyron, it wasn't incredibly efficient, but he still had 89 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns rushing.
Yeah.
Like, how are you allowing a team that's so depleted on the offensive line to just run the football, down your throat like that? Not to say that I expect more from the Niners defense, but we've come to expect more than stellar play from the Niners defense, and we did not see that against the Rams. Like, that was an opportunity to pin the ears back, get the pass rush going. But, I mean, McVay, just similar to what, Joe Brady had with the Bills, like, they were just dialing up plays that were working, and it was one of the most gritty like comebacks I've ever seen. Like, it wasn't pretty. They didn't have Cooper Kupp, they didn't have Puka Nacua. They were just guys out there playing football. And Matt Stafford, what an incredible leader out there as well.
So let's talk about the next game. I'd like to, if unless you have more to add.
No more to add, but I would just say I'm not concerned about the Niners offense, but I am a little bit concerned about the defense. You let Minnesota kind of throw you around, do whatever they wanted to you. Same deal with the Rams. Not what you want to see.
Here's a fun question. A lot of people viewed like my way of understanding this is through fantasy football because I get to see who got. I was in 4 fantasy drafts. So I get to see like how the general NFL population viewed NFL defenses. I saw a lot of people pick the 49ers defense first, meaning a lot of people thought that's the best defense in football. That doesn't seem to be the case. who is the best defense in football? I would say it's either, I think it's Pittsburgh, followed by probably Kansas City. I think Denver's in the conversation.
No.
Like, who are the best defenses in football through your eyes?
It's Pittsburgh.
Oh, Minnesota's in that conversation too. Excuse me.
Pittsburgh to me is number one. Cincinnati is number two. Minnesota, you can.
Cincinnati.
I'm sorry.
Even after,
why do I keep saying Cincinnati? Kansas City. I think I think those two teams are clear cut the best defenses in football. And I still think that the Jets are up there. Their run defense wasn't great the first 2 weeks. I think that they're going to get that figured out. So between them and the Vikings for that maybe 3-4 spot, I don't mean to disrespect anyone else out there. I think the Packers have a really strong defense as well. The Bears also have a very, very good defense, and this kept them in games. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh and Kansas City kind of have a leg up on people, and we'll see how Minnesota looks here. But right now, Minnesota looks like they're a legit defense.
So tier one, you would say Pittsburgh and Kansas City.
Yep, tier one.
Followed by Minnesota.
Yeah,
Then followed by Chicago, the Jets, and there's one other team you mentioned. I can't remember who it was.
The Packers. Packers defense is looking really solid right now. Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Top 6 defenses in football: Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Minnesota, and then an amalgamation somewhere of Chicago, Jets, Packers. One of those 3 in whatever order you want.
Yeah.
I think it's
they're forcing turnovers. They're getting a pass rush. They're making timely plays, which is arguably more important than anything. And I think, now to actually talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, that was kind of the thing that made their defense great over the past couple of years was very timely plays, timely interceptions, timely sacks, timely forcing completions and things like that. That's arguably just as important as playing good defense holistically. Being an opportunistic team, if you will.
How about Detroit? The Lions beat Arizona 20-13 during week 3. Here's what it really stands out to me. They got back to their identity.
Yeah.
Detroit had 187 rushing yards. David Montgomery, 23 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 16 carries for 83 yards. And Jared Goff, a really efficient day, 18 for 23, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. They threw the ball less. They ran the ball more. They got back to what they do best and got the win against Arizona. It wasn't perfect. I would have liked to see a more dominating performance from the Lions, but what'd you make of this game? And we'll get into more details in a minute.
Yeah, just another game where, similar to the Philadelphia Eagles, you had a lot of offense to only have 20 points. You'd think, looking at the box score, that this game would have been, more of a blowout. But the Cardinals are proving to be a sticky team. They're not going to be an easy get for people, and I think that the Cardinals are improving week to week. Obviously, they gave the Bills a challenge in week 1. Week 2, they go out there and absolutely obliterate the Rams, which caught a lot of people off guard. And then this week, you hang tight with the Lions. So we're seeing, again, some growth from the Cardinals, and they're going to be a tough team to pull away from. But yeah, really positive to see the Lions run the football and have that be their identity. It was just weird that more points weren't on the board.
I'm not going to lie. I thought this was kind of a test for Arizona, and I would argue they failed. Kyler Murray is coming off a massive victory in a great week. Didn't really follow it up. Look, I know it was close. I know it wasn't a blowout. I like what you said. They're a tough out, but is that all Arizona is? Because I was hoping they might win here. And if they won this game, It would have been a big statement. If Kyler Murray has a great game and they win, they beat Detroit, you're looking at Arizona really differently, but it was kind of a litmus test, and they didn't pass, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you make of that statement?
I just don't think the team is quite ready to win. Again, I love to talk about the scars that you build as a team from learning how to win football games, and in particular, one possession NFL football games. It's very, very hard, and Kyler is still trying to find, his groove, although he's playing very well. The defense is still trying to find their groove. The offense, they didn't run the football well at all. Kyler Murray was their leading rusher basically off of scrambles, and I think that they're just incomplete, and they haven't found a way, outside of that Rams game where they really jumped on them, to be firing on all cylinders. And let's be honest, this Lions defense is much, much better than years past also. I think this is the best defense in the Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, kind of Jared Goff era. So let's give them some credit for, being great against the run. But again, back to the Cardinals. There's some experience away, some battle scars away from figuring out how to win these games and what the recipe is for success.
No, I think that's accurate. And I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to hate on Arizona. I thought, again, I was disappointed they lost. I thought they might have a chance to win this game. And if they'd won, it would have been a big statement. But they're making progress. Like, they are better than they were. And I think it just takes a long time to totally change a culture and rebuild everything, which Arizona was a complete rebuild. And they're doing it. And I think they're making progress. It's just they're not where I hope they would be after this week. But I still want to be very clear with Arizona Cardinals fans. You're making progress. It's just not going as fast as I would like.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm continue to be patient with them. They got a defensive head coach. You scored 28 on the Bills. I think that's pretty impressive. And then again, you scored 41 on the Rams. So it's there. They're just going to be a little bit inconsistent, but I'm going to be patient with them.
They got a massive game coming up in Arizona. They're playing their former head coach. They are hosting Washington and Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury going back to the desert. I don't know what happens there. I think Kyler Murray against Jaden Daniels is actually must-watch TV. I think it's going to be an outstanding football game, like a lot of fun next Sunday.
I don't know what the line is set at, but I might have to take the over. That's going to be a really, really fun game to watch.
Dude, two quarterbacks who can run. They throw the ball over the yard. A lot of great receivers in that game.
Pretty footballs too, man. Just
oh yeah. Oh, dude, I really think that's going to be just I hope it's going to be like a college game, like a fun shootout, 45-43, something like that. I don't know if that's exactly what's going to happen. It's probably more like 28-34, but I'd just love to see a lot of scoring and a lot of offense from those two quarterbacks next week.
Yeah, I'd love to see that from them.
A defense you like, let's talk about him. Green Bay beat Tennessee 30-14. I want to talk about Malik Willis. We'll get to that. But let's first acknowledge Will Levis having 3 more turnovers, 2 interceptions and a fumble. He had his second pick six of the year. Through 3 games, the Titans quarterback Will Levis has 8 turnovers, 5 interceptions and 3 fumbles, 2 pick sixes. It's on top of that, you see him in commercials all the time promoting Mayo, and it's a bad look, dude. It's not a shock Tennessee's 0-3. Man, it's bad news. I think Brian Callahan can coach. It's just you got a quarterback who's literally giving the game away to opponents. What do you make of Tennessee right now?
Just handicapped by their quarterback is the only way to say it. You give a team 3 extra possessions, no wonder you lose 30-14.
And 2 touchdowns, by the way, so far this year. He's handed defense minimum.
Right, so you're handing them, good point. You're handing them a touchdown in that game. So let's just back it up. Now maybe it's only, 23-14. That doesn't look as out of hand. Like, these games really aren't out of hand. The Titans are just costing themselves. I'm sorry, not the Titans are. Will Levis is costing his team with these really, really bad turnovers. Again, something like you want to see growth, and you thought maybe that first drive or early in the first quarter when you get out there and you score, okay, maybe we are seeing some growth here, but we were wrong. We were wrong.
Tennessee has a top 5 defense if the season ended today.
It is a better
0-3
defense than we gave them credit for. There is no doubt.
No, statistically, I'm not saying they actually are, but if the stats were, the counting was done today, statistically, Tennessee's top 5.
Yeah, that's a pretty good defense.
Here's what I want to say. So Will Levis, obviously, he's a mess, and they've got a problem at quarterback. Here's the angle, and what I really want to talk about, and the story to me very clearly is Packers backup quarterback Malik Willis. A lot of people, I think, know this, but if you don't, let's clarify. Monday, August 26th, Malik Willis was traded from the team that drafted him, the Tennessee Titans, to Green Bay. They drafted him. They had a lot of hope for him. New coach was brought in. It wasn't working. They traded him away and said, we don't want you anymore. They traded him away for a 7th-round draft pick. So less than a month ago, Malik Willis was in Tennessee as a backup. He gets traded to Green Bay. Kind of an interesting move, but a lot of people, if you go read about it, were saying, oh, Tennessee, great pick for them. They fleeced the Packers, giving away a quarterback who's useless. Like, a lot of people said Tennessee won that trade. Well, week 1, Jordan Love, the Packers quarterback, gets hurt. He's out for a couple of games. Suddenly, we got to get to know Malik Willis. And I remember saying, I think the Packers season is over. I remember being like, they're in trouble. And the second week of the year happens. Malik Willis plays pretty well. They win. And then now Malik Willis gets an opportunity to play his former team that discarded him. Malik Willis goes 13 for 19, 202 yards, a touchdown pass. He also ran for a touchdown with 6 carries and 73 yards. Now, that's all great. Malik Willis is saving the Packers season. Here's the angle, the thing that really stands out to me. When given multiple opportunities to throw it in the face of the Tennessee Titans, he wouldn't do it. He went out of his way to be gracious and respectful, talk about Tennessee in a way that, I learned a lot there. They gave me my first opportunity in the league. He would not once. And it seemed like genuine, like, hey, this is a guy who's really emotionally mature. And what I want to say, and I want to encourage people out there, I've learned a lot of lessons by watching people make mistakes. Now I want people to do that for me. Learn from my mistake. I lost out on an opportunity to coach, something I really wanted to do and really cared about. Frankly, because I couldn't let go of bitterness about the past and a wrong that felt like I carried it for a long, long time. My bitterness about the past cost an opportunity for me. And I look at a guy like Malik Willis as an example for me to go, wow, when given an opportunity to bash people that probably did wrong by him, he didn't do it. And it seemed not only like he wasn't saying stuff, but genuinely like he's just living his life, trying to enjoy his life and worry about himself. And I really found Malik Willis's attitude after this game inspiring because he didn't seem like he was holding his tongue. He seemed like genuinely he had a peace about it that, hey, like, I'm just not going to go there. I don't care. It is what it is. And I'm just trying to do the best I can every day. And that humility, that graciousness really inspired me with Malik Willis this week. Yeah, he played great at the football position, but sometimes off the field is even more inspiring. And I thought how he handled a team that discarded him and wronged him to some opinions and some ways you could look at it was pretty cool. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, and to just show up 2 weeks in a row when everybody said exactly what we said. Packers season might be over, right? You got Malik Willis. We saw the one play he was in there when Jordan Love went down against the Eagles, and he couldn't even get the Hail Mary off. And everyone's like, okay, this is going to go downhill. But for him to show up the way he did, poised, confident, knowing the offense, goes to coaching from Matt LaFleur. But then, like you said, like that's Malik Willis's character and who he is. This is a guy who, during the combine, is giving a homeless guy clothing out of his suitcase because he knows he's going to have way more during his life. And he's a high character guy. That's part of why he's a great leader and a great quarterback. And I'm excited for him to, maybe get one more week. Who knows what Jordan Love's status is going to be, but would love to see another week for him. And I think somebody's going to ultimately churn out a little bit of cash to have a quality backup on their team if, the Packers don't go ahead and do that themselves.
Here's the unsung angle here. Hey, a month ago, Malik Willis was viewed as useless with the Titans coaching staff. Meaning like, hey, that coaching staff couldn't find a use for him. They didn't think he was savable. He's not winning games. So the only difference is the situation and the coaching staff he's working with. If you don't think coaching matters in the NFL, look at Sam Darnold, look at Justin Fields, look at Malik Willis, look at the people that have left a bad situation, or not even a bad, but to a different situation with different coaches, and suddenly look like a different quarterback.
Yeah, environment
Malik
matters.
Willis is Will Levis, is banging his head on a wall. He's literally giving games away. I really like Brian Callahan. He did a great job with Jake Browning last year as a backup quarterback in Cincinnati. I'm really worried that the skill set Brian Callahan doesn't have is the ability to accommodate a young quarterback. He's not exactly working well with Will Levis. He didn't see anything in Malik Willis that works, and we're seeing a coaching staff in Green Bay finding a way to work with Malik Willis pretty dang well. And so I think, on one hand, you got to be concerned about Brian Callahan, but on the other hand, really give credit to Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff in Green Bay for putting this kid in a position to succeed and doing really well. Coaching matters more than it ever has before. And I just think that, like, we talk about players all the time, but the coaches are more important than ever in the NFL. What are you going to say?
I'm not saying Mason Rudolph is Andy Dalton, but does Callahan say, "Hey, like I got to save my job now," and go with Mason Rudolph if another game happens where Will Levis is just turning the ball over?
Dude, I think you're already there.
I mean,
Like,
if I'm Callahan and I saw what Andy Dalton just said, I'd be like, "Fuck, maybe my backup makes more sense here." I don't know. And again, not apples to apples. Andy Dalton, the guy who had proven NFL success, versus Mason Rudolph, who just had a really, really tough time in Pittsburgh. But maybe that wasn't his fault. He was dealing with our favorite guy, Mr. Canada himself. So I don't know. Maybe he's got a little more juice in the tank. Nobody knows.
this game coming up, I believe it's Monday Night Football. Titans at Dolphins could be some of the worst quarterback play we see all year.
Sheesh.
It's a disaster we're heading towards. I think Miami might make a quarterback change, and if you are Tennessee, at what point do you say, "Hey, we're going to take this Will Levis kid"? He has potential. He's talented, but like he's literally costing you game after game, like giving the game away. I agree. I don't think Mason Rudolph is exactly like a shining example of a great quarterback, but he at least knows the terminology. He knows not to, whatever the hell that fumble thing was week 2, like he knows not to just give the game away. He might execute the offense better than Will Levis is right now. I wonder what practice looks like in Tennessee. How bad is it if they think that, if they haven't made the change yet? I just wonder.
Yeah.
But we talk about coaches needing a veteran quarterback. Say what you want about Mason Rudolph. He knows NFL terminology. He's been around the league for a while. He's probably more comfortable in that offense than Will Levis might be. It's hard to imagine any quarterback couldn't be better than Will Levis at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to bash on the kid, but like it's getting ugly in Tennessee.
Yes, it certainly is. And I didn't have a chance to talk about the Dolphins game, Dolphins Seahawks. If I'm Seattle, I'm sorry, not Seattle. If I'm Miami, how am I rolling out Skylar Thompson? You've known for years that he is not a good football player. For years, you've known he's not a good football player. How are you still rolling him out? Anyways, I digress.
Let's just talk about it if you want. Let's lean into it. Seattle beat Miami 24-3 on Sunday. And look, say what you want. Seattle looks awesome in many ways.
No, they don't.
Geno Smith. Well,
Seattle did
Geno
not
Smith had
look
2
awesome.
interceptions, and fair enough. They were up 17-3 in the end of the first quarter. I guess where I was getting at is Seattle doesn't feel like the story to me. Seattle's whatever. They're 3-0, I guess. The story has to be that there was no plan at all behind Tua in Miami, which
No.
given your understanding, like your backup quarterback is Tim Boyle and Skylar Thompson. And Tua's had concussion problems. The biggest struggle of Tua's career is literally staying on the field. To not have a capable backup is a huge problem. I love Mike McDaniel. I love what's going on in Miami. And maybe the answer was, hey, we're paying Tua so much we can't afford to pay a backup. I'm not really sure. But it's very clear there was no plan after Tua, and that's a problem. By the way, I appreciate you checking me. Seattle didn't look great,
Yes,
but they
they
dominated
did not look
Miami,
great.
who looked lost on the offensive side of the football.
I mean, the problem is again, like you knew what Skylar Thompson was a couple years ago when Tua was first having the concussion problems like really, really badly, right? In 2022. You saw Skylar Thompson play, you saw that he was sub 60 completion percentage, and you've kept him on the roster as the number 1 backup, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. Part of winning in the NFL is, hey, if my guy goes down for 1 or 2 games, do I have somebody that can at least be manageable and or be competitive? We saw in the second half of the game with Skylar Thompson, nothing was possible. Was the game kind of already out of reach at that point? Yeah, absolutely. But then to roll him out the next week, and to me, what looked like for Mike McDaniel was a complete coaching failure, if I'm being honest with you. It didn't look like he knew what to call to make him comfortable. Skylar Thompson didn't know where to go with the football. There was never any rhythm. There was never any flow. And I'm not sure whether that's Mike McDaniel's ability to, put a game plan together for somebody that's not Tua, but it looked like there was no game plan. And that's after, again, you decided to double down on having Skylar Thompson. I think that's such a big problem and such a big miss not to have a quality backup in the NFL.
I'm not even worried about this year. This year is probably over for Miami. The question is what's next. I'm convinced, and it's just a belief based on nothing other than like, hey, Tua loves his family. He's a family guy. I know walking away from football is really hard, but when you're faced with like the ability to hang out with your kids the rest of your life and a miserable future, it's pretty easy to say just take your money and walk away. I think Tua's done. I don't like that answer. It's the only NFL jersey I own. I love Tua. I thought he was playing really well when he got hurt. I thought he looked, maybe I'm biased, but I thought he was like in the best shape of his life and looked really prepared and like he was on it. And some stuff around him didn't go great in like the Bills game, but I thought he was playing great. I think he's done probably forever. So then you're a Dolphins team that owes a quarterback a ton of money. So you're limited with cap space. Your answer's got to be a rookie quarterback, most likely. So because you need an inexpensive contract at the quarterback position. The dream scenario here is if Miami can just lose out, basically tank, look awful, and go get the literally other quarterback in Miami right now, Cam Ward, out of the University of Miami. Cam Ward with Jalen Waddle, Mike McDaniel, Tyreek Hill. That's a lot of fun. That's really exciting and really interesting. I don't know if they can pull that off, but the tank for Cameron Ward situation's happening in front of our eyes in Miami. And the way to do that is to continue rolling out Tim Boyle and losing football games and looking awful on offense, because you're going to go 1-16 if you do that.
Right.
That might be the best way forward, because, again, I know quarterbacks would line up to play in Miami with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and play for Mike McDaniel. The problem is, how do they find the money to pay them when you literally still got to pay Tua a ton of guaranteed money?
Yeah.
I think a rookie quarterback's basically the only solution right now in Miami, unfortunately.
I'd just like to bring up the point with the Dolphins as well. They might not have been a very good team this year, even with Tua. To me, Mike McDaniel's offense looked figured out to me against Jacksonville and against Buffalo. It looked like everyone had all the answers to the test. It looked like everything was so hard for Miami, right? And I'm curious.
I just disagree. I really don't agree at all with that, honestly.
I mean, they scored, 17 points against Jacksonville and choked away a bunch. They only scored 10 points against Buffalo. The game was already out of hand by the time Tua even had that bad concussion. Granted, he was driving, going down there to make a play. Maybe he breathed some life back into the game, but that game was already over. And then we saw the way that the injuries happened last year, and yes, it was deflated. But to me, like these top-tier teams or these better teams, like they have Miami figured out at this point. It's part of why they haven't been able to beat these great teams. Like you talk about running it back like the Steelers have. The Dolphins have large in part been running things back, doing things the same, which this year would have been the third year in a row. Obviously, it wasn't a recipe for success, and I think that's a problem.
Look, I have to check myself because maybe I'm just a fanboy. I don't mean to be, but I just couldn't disagree more. Like you look at the way interceptions happen in the Buffalo game. It was a ball bouncing off a receiver's shoulder. It was Robbie Anderson not knowing his route. It was the right play call, poor execution from a receiver. You look at what they do with motions pre-snap, the way they get people in position to succeed. Like the play calling and design in Miami is light years ahead of what we saw Monday night in Jacksonville. I think Mike McDaniel's got it. I think he's awesome. In fact, I love a lot of the way they scheme up people open, and the run design is incredible. They run like basically a wing tee offense from the shotgun in a spread set. It's crazy. The motions pre-snap, the way they identify coverages. I really am a believer of the Mike McDaniel system. I think they had some bad luck early, and now they're in really big trouble with a quarterback who simply can't execute their offense to save his life.
Let me counter you with this. Mike McDaniels can put together a great playbook. I'm not confident he can call the best game for the Miami Dolphins.
I just disagree. I just look at what they did last year. I look at the way things went wrong in that Bills game was not play calling. It was execution. It was little mistakes. It was you're missing some receivers and things went wrong, but I just don't think that it's him. I really believe in him. I believe in him light years more than I believe in Tua. I'm like, he's my favorite coach in the league. I know I'm biased here. I think he's a home run coach. He's one of the best coaches in football, truly, in my opinion. He just needs the right quarterback. And it's hard to do it with. I think Tua, I love him, was always a bit limited. Mm-hmm. You give Mike McDaniel a quarterback who isn't running full speed on the linebackers, has a better arm, can run around a little more, make plays, like I think it'd be really, really interesting. Give him even Kirk Cousins. He'd be a home run. I just really think that what you're forgetting here is how bad Tua was year one and how bad things were, and the work he did to get Tua to a point last year where he led the NFL in passing. That's not nothing. That's not a bad coach. You just can't.
In 2022, it wasn't bad. They had a bad stretch to close the year, no doubt, but it wasn't like they had a horrible season, right? The offense was still relatively electric.
Again, Tua led the league in passing last year. They dropped 70 on Denver.
Right, and that skews a lot of their
end
stats.
of last year, they were great. I don't know, man. I really don't think McDaniel's the problem at all in Miami, even a little bit.
Against Kansas City, again, obviously a great defense. They scored 7. Against Buffalo, they scored 14. Against Buffalo, they scored 19. Against Dallas, they scored 22, which was great. Let's see, where else did they score a few points? Against Kansas City, again, only scored 14. Only scored 17 against Philly. Only scored 20 against Buffalo. So that's what I'm saying. These top-tier teams, Mike, they've got you figured out.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I disagree,
and I'm not
but
sure if it's, again, maybe you're right. Maybe it's the limitations of Tua not being able to elevate the team past, a certain threshold. But maybe I'm misplacing some blame here, but I'm not confident in Mike McDaniel's ability to call a full game. I feel like he's become more predictable. I feel like I know what the Dolphins are going to run. Maybe I'm just that smart of a football guy. I should be an NFL defensive coordinator.
I just don't agree, but that's fine. Time will tell. I mean, really, I think it may not matter because they're like, this sucks, but the Dolphins are like totally fucked if Tua retires. Like they owe him a ton of money. They can't pay a new quarterback. Their only hope is like tanking and getting a rookie quarterback, getting a Jackson Dart, getting a Cameron Ward, getting a Quinn Ewers. Getting a top quarterback in the draft is the only way I think you can financially fix the problem in Miami, given how much money you owe Tua. I know veterans love to be there, but you just can't pay them.
I think that you call the Broncos and you're trying to get your hands on Jarrett Stidham. And I think he's your bridge quarterback for a year. Maybe Tyrod Taylor's out there somewhere in the ether. You can get him for a year. But you get somebody for a year and you just rock with it. Don't say Bryce Young. I'm not going to hear Bryce Young going there.
Oh, I was going to say an even worse name. Can you imagine one name worse?
Will Levis.
No. Zach Wilson would be really interesting.
No.
Look, the thing we talked about earlier, the ability to accommodate a young quarterback and teach them the game. That's something that Sean Payton's displayed. That's something that Mike McDaniel has displayed. I think quietly Zach Wilson's way better in Denver right now than people realize. I think he's like a little loaded cannon sitting there who's learned a lot this offseason and this summer and training camp. He played really well in the preseason. I would really like to see Zach Wilson run the Dolphins offense with Mike McDaniel and the confidence that Mike McDaniel's going to give him. He's talented, man. He really is. He had a couple really good plays in the preseason. I think with the right coach instilling confidence, which he never really had in New York, it's an interesting conversation. Plus, how fun would it be to watch Zach Wilson play the Jets and Aaron Rodgers?
I wouldn't love that. I just don't like Zach Wilson. But I would love to see Sam Darnold in Miami.
That dog will hunt, but they can't afford it.
Yeah, I know. I think you said that earlier in the episode too, but that'd be interesting.
The Giants beat the Browns. I don't have a lot to say here. I will say this. It makes the Jaguars look worse. The Jaguars are 0-3. They lost to the Browns. So watching the Giants beat the Browns,
by the way.
Yeah, so the Giants beat the Browns 21-15. I don't have a lot to say. I will say it's interesting to see Malik Neighbors get 8 catches for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm not going to pretend I watched this game. I don't. It's I don't know. I will say the Browns are so much more disappointing than I even thought they would be this year. I was really interested in them. I thought they were a better team. I thought they were maybe a team that would compete for that division in the AFC North. And 3 games in, they're 1-2 with some ugly losses. I'm not impressed. I have to watch this game still. I will later this week, but I'm not excited at all by the Giants-Browns game.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson goes from, oh my goodness, like this offense is starting to improve and come together, and then he has 2 ugly fumbles that that give New York the game. They score 21 points in the first half, 21 unanswered. In the second half, the defense obviously stepped up and said, hey, offense, can you please do something? Do anything to win this game for us. And the offense was unable to do that in the second half. And it's really, really rough to see this offense continue to struggle. Meanwhile, you have a defense that's playing their hearts out for you. You give them short fields, obviously giving the Giants football. Just, again, Kevin Stefanski's time is up. Sometimes your time is just up. I don't know what else to say, and it's not because the team's bad, but you lost Nick Chubb. To me, that was the heart and soul of your team. Maybe when he comes back, things get better and can support, the passing game, but I don't know. I don't even want to give credit to Daniel Jones. I don't even want to give him credit, and he had a solid game on paper.
Well, full transparency here, right? I haven't watched this game, and I plan to. I'm going to watch it between now and Thursday. I also don't imagine I'm going to watch it much that's worth reporting back, though. Like, this game, there's a reason it's the only game this week I didn't watch. I'm just like, this is not a good matchup. It's not interesting. Neither of these teams are going anywhere. I'm just more almost disappointed in the Browns, right? To lose this game to the Giants. It's like, I got to watch how it happened, but it's like, man, I thought the defense was better. A Giants offensive line's a problem, and where's Myles Garrett? Where's the noise happening? What's going on with the Browns defense that they're allowing 21 points in the first half from the Giants, making Daniel Jones look good on paper? I don't know what's going on there. I got to watch it to really give context to that situation, but it's a weird one. Yeah,
and again, you look at that offense, their first touchdown came from the Giants being the Giants and fumbling on the first play of the game and giving it to them, and they score a 24-yard touchdown pass. Like, that was the first touchdown of the game and the last one for the Browns up until midway through the fourth quarter. So, I'm sorry, not midway through the fourth quarter, towards the end of the third. Like, it's not good enough. But also, maybe we did talk about this Giants defense being pretty solid. If there was something to point to for this New York team, maybe the defense is starting to find something on their side. But then again, we know that the Browns offense is really, really struggling right now. I think both things can be true. Browns offense is going to continue to struggle, but then maybe this New York defense is getting a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll watch it and report back. It's 16. It's a lot to watch every game, and this is the one I didn't get to, and I'll see what I find if there's anything worth talking about Thursday.
But yeah, neighbors.
I saved this game. Yeah, I saved this game for last because I've got a lot to say. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was fun. This game was a wild one. It really was ugly at times. Indy beat Chicago 21-16. Anthony Richardson and Caleb Williams. My gosh. Messy is a great word here. Both had 2 interceptions. Caleb Williams had a fumble as well. It was just, they were trading interceptions at times. It was a lot of ugly football. I really appreciate after the game, Anthony Richardson took accountability for his mistakes. He had a really awful, truly horrific interception in the end zone where it's just like, you want to slam your clipboard on the ground and like, what are you doing? What do you see? What possessed you to throw that football? Just really horrible. Anthony Richardson after the game took accountability. He got his first win. He didn't look happy. He looked dejected and upset. Yeah, we got the win, but I got to play better. It's basically what he said in the interview after the game. Literally on the field, still in shoulder pads. And I love that. I really appreciate that he's acknowledging, I got to clean stuff up. I'm not that worried about him. He's really talented. He's putting a lot on tape he can learn from. But at some point soon, I'm really patient for this guy, especially because he's so talented. The more talented you are, the longer leash you get. If Kenny Pickett was making the mistakes that Anthony Richardson was making, you don't wait because he's not talented enough to wait for. But a guy this talented, you give a longer leash because if he does figure it out someday, it's game over. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league. So you should be patient for this guy. Yeah. But I appreciate that he's acknowledging he's got to learn from what's going on paper. I know I'm talking a lot, but I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, let's hear
it. Here's what kills me about this football game. This is the thing that it feels unexcusable. I'm watching I don't know what the hell is going on in Chicago. Caleb Williams threw the ball 52 times. It's his 3rd game in the NFL as a rookie. What are we doing? Fire everybody. I'm not like they might figure it out. There were some good play calls. I don't want to hate on them too much, but it's like if that's your plan for your rookie quarterback, you are mismanaging this kid massively. And you sent me a text that fired me up. You said, "What if he just got a clean slate and had hired Jim Harbaugh this offseason?" And you're right. That would have been Jim Harbaugh and Caleb Williams in Chicago with this defense and the weapons they have on offense would have been a home run. And the clear thing is this team's good on paper. They've got a young quarterback. And the coaching staff couldn't work with Justin Fields, so why should we trust them to work with Caleb Williams? I know it's a different offensive coordinator, but it's like, dude, it's not a great offensive coordinator. It's not a guy who did good in the past. What are we doing here in Chicago? It seems inexcusable. What say you?
Yeah, it is absolutely inexcusable. And I think about the fact that he threw 37 times the previous week. That's a lot of times throwing the football. And you thought, okay, they're playing the Colts. The Colts just got absolutely gashed by the Packers. Why don't we put together a heavy focused run script and try and get some things churning on the ground and open it up, take some pressure off of Caleb Williams? And they could not do it. And they didn't do it.
And DeForest Buckner's out. He's injured. Like the number one run force defender on the Colts is not even playing. What the hell is your plan? What are you doing, dude?
And I don't know if it's the offensive line is a problem and their inability to run block, but one of the things that Jason Kelsey and Jeff Schwartz, they talk about, when you're dropping back and you're pass setting for a majority of your plays, it's really, really hard to switch the gear and start combo blocking and driving forward. On the inverse, when you're moving these guys around offensively on the offensive line and you're getting that push in the run game, it makes it much easier to drop back and pass because that D line is like, do I have to flow or do I have to penetrate and attack? And when you create that confusion for the D line, it becomes much easier for your offensive line to operate. But if you're just dropping back and slinging it, you've got a serious, serious problem. I know you could say DeAndre Swift doesn't have great vision, but you still got Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson, two very physical backs. If you want to run the football, you can. And oh my goodness, this is what I wanted to talk about earlier. On fourth down plays, this to me, it blows my mind. On fourth and short, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, unless you are running a like gadget 2-point conversion type play to get the first down, do not go horizontal at all. Ever. There is no reason to try and stretch a play out that puts your running back or whoever's carrying the football at risk of not falling forward to potentially get it. And you're relying on numbers and leverage outside. And if you don't have numbers and leverage, you're cooked. And sometimes I see teams run it anyways. And it just blows my mind. The yards are forward. Get a guy going forward. I don't even like those plays out of shotgun. Get under center and let this guy start moving forward, whether that's off the center's ass or if it's off the guard. But don't sit here and try and do this option out. What was that? I don't even know what that was. It's just it's asinine to me that I digress.
What I'll say, my favorite, and if I'm ever an offensive coordinator again and I'm playing someone, I'm giving away free information, but I don't care. My favorite play on 4th and 1 is you send a motion to help your quarterback get a little view of what the coverage is, and you run a bootleg. You fake the run inside, you have linebackers crash inside, quarterback gets outside of the perimeter. A guy like Caleb Williams, a guy like Josh Allen, a guy like Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, anyone with athletic ability out on the perimeter with the ability to run or throw. You got a chip route in front of you. You got someone else running across a route in front of you. You can run for the first down. You can throw for the first down. Linebackers are sucked inside because of the play action fake. You run a motion pre-snap to give your quarterback an idea what the defense is doing. That's my dream play call in 4th and 1. That's the only time you're running laterally is if you run a bootleg, fake the run inside, get on the perimeter. Otherwise, yeah, hit it inside. I agree with you.
When was the best time that was executed, that play you're talking about? I have an answer. In the Super Bowl, 4th and 3 in overtime for the Chiefs to keep it moving. And Patrick Mahomes gets out on the edge. He has the option to have, like you said, the dump off pass or something deep. But he's like, I'm right here. I'm just going to tuck and run. It gives your quarterback options. Not an option pitch where you didn't even have leverage. At no point did they have leverage. You didn't have the edge sealed. Like nobody had to be one-on-one and make a decision. That's the whole point of the option. You're putting a pin on somebody and making them make a decision. Did Caleb get 2 plays and maybe he was supposed to change the play or, can it to another play? I don't know, but goodness gracious, I can't fathom the addition of DeAndre Swift and maintaining Khalil Herbert and not finding a way to run the football. That to me is just dumb. But on the flip side, really excited for Rome. He looked great. Rome looked great. I thought he found a little bit more connection with DJ Moore. Like Rome is certainly as advertised.
I think it's very clear Caleb Williams can play. He's not perfect. He's making a couple mistakes here and there, but like he's making enough plays. Like the kid's talented.
Yeah.
He's got the ability. The question is the position they're putting him in. In his 3rd game in the NFL ever, they're making him throw 52 times.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing?
You
got a Ferrari and you're driving it as hard as you possibly can off road. What the fuck? Sorry, that's how you drive a Ferrari.
And
dude.
You want to know what the Colts did? They gave the ball 23 times to Jonathan Taylor. 23 times. And they won the football game against a very good Bears defense that had been handling rush offenses relatively easy. I think they held everybody under 100 this year. But Jonathan Taylor is just different. You give your workhorses the football. You let them create that space. You let your linemen start pushing and leaning. But if they're just dropping back, it's not good football.
I might call this episode Coaching is Everything. But you look at Justin Fields, who left Chicago. He's 3-0 in Pittsburgh. He's getting better every week. They're running the football a lot. He's getting better. It's not a coincidence that the former quarterback they replaced him with left Chicago and got better.
Yes.
Sam Darnold left Carolina. He got better. I know he went to the 49ers first, but on his way out, he's in a new situation. He went from the Jets and Carolina to the 49ers in Minnesota. Suddenly Sam Darnold can play. What's the difference? Coaching, players around him. You look at Malik Willis leaving Tennessee to Green Bay. He was useless in Tennessee. Now he's winning 2 games in a row in Green Bay. What's the difference? Coaching. Coaching matters. And I do not think, it's a little early to make this claim, I don't think the coaching staff in Chicago is the right answer for Caleb Williams. We'll see. We're 3 games in. You got a lot of time to turn that opinion around, but I'm already like, dude, now I'm biased. I thought that might be the case going into the year, but we've seen nothing to indicate this is the right coaching staff to be managing a rookie quarterback in Chicago. That scares me a lot.
I think, and now I'm going to get my tinfoil hat on. When Waldron was in Seattle, we gave him the credit for maybe what Dave Canales did with Geno Smith, right? Canales goes to Tampa Bay. Baker looks good. Now he's in Carolina. Good for him. Shane Waldron's offense that 2nd and 3rd year was not very good. They had a tough time getting the ball to their playmakers, DK Metcalf, and activating Jackson Smith and Jigba. How do you not make plays with those guys on your offense? Those guys are elite. And then now, again, you're here with tons of offensive weapons, and it just doesn't look like they have an identity other than dropping back and throwing. Very simple, very vanilla, very plain concepts, by the way. There's nothing unique about it. Shane Waldron might have been the wrong hire. But yeah, I mean, I don't have faith in Eberflus to do anything other than coach up the defense.
Have you ever heard the name Steve Ensminger?
I have not.
Do you know why?
No. Why have I not heard of it?
Sorry, as you wouldn't know. Sorry, that terrible questioning. He was actually the offensive coordinator of the 2019 LSU Tigers that won the national title. You've never heard of him. You've heard of Joe Brady. My point is, it's not the first time we've seen a coach who wasn't the offensive coordinator, but was instead the passing game coordinator, would have had a huge impact and would have been the guy that really gets a lot of the credit.
Right.
Now, so my point is this. I think maybe people misread what happened in Seattle, but they got it right in LSU. Everyone could recognize Joe Brady's making a huge impact in LSU. He walked away. He became the offensive coordinator. He's a name you know. You don't even know the name Steve Ensminger. Shane Waldron got all the credit in Seattle, but this would support your claim that it's possible Dave Canales is really the secret sauce to that Seattle revival with Geno Smith. It wouldn't be the first time a non-offensive coordinator made a massive impact and should have been the guy to get all the credit for why the offense is doing well.
Right. And again, it could be early. Right, there's still a lot of football to be played left this year, but the glaring issues in the run game with the offensive line just looking so poor through these first 3 games, to me, is an indicator of more of what we're going to see through the rest of this year. Because at this point, I don't think it's the offensive line. I think those guys are more than talented. I just think it's how they're being coached.
Well, this is why I love Mike McDaniel. Actually, we talked about him earlier. I came to his defense. His schemes in the run game. Well, I watched so much tape of the guy. It's borderline genius. Like the way he found concepts from like the 50s and 60s, and basically retrofitted them by using the same ideas we did back then, but with different formations and in the shotgun with a spread and guys in motion. So they start in the same position, like the ball is snapped to them in the same position as like a wing T offense, but they started out wide at wide receiver instead. The creativity, the way you create lanes and holes, and frankly, really good matchups and good angles for offensive linemen is what makes Mike McDaniel such a great coach. I think he just regularly puts offensive linemen in a position to succeed.
Right.
We're not seeing that in Chicago at all.
And that's the key thing that you mentioned. Matchups, right? Are we getting our guys matched up 2-on-1 for this play? Can we double team and get to a backer? Can we pull and not have that nose tackle be chasing? Can we get him cut off so that he can't disrupt the play? Can we be good with our hands in the run game and stop swinging and missing and reaching and lunging and stopping our running backs, like making them lose their momentum? Like that's coaching. Like you said, offensive lines can be coached into a unit, and it just seems like they're missing things fundamentally.
My favorite thing about coaching was figuring out how to get guys in a good matchup. We ran GH counter, which is guard, H-back counter. However, Forest Grove, I made the game plan for Forest Grove week 1. They didn't use it, whatever, I don't care. Forest Grove didn't have an outside leverage defensive end. They had a guy in between the guard and the tackle sitting there, and then no run force defender outside. So my point is, when you ran GH counter, the tackle backside had to dig out that technique, and the angle just never worked. No matter how you did it, you're like, the backside tackle can never make that block.
Right.
So instead I ran GT counter, where the guard just blocked out on that technique, and the tackle was the guy coming down the line to blow up the play side end. The matchup worked out way better. The angles were better. That's the kind of stuff I loved about coaching, was finding the right angles for my offensive linemen. Now, the team I used to coach for didn't use that game plan. That God bless them, whatever. But I loved that part of coaching, was figuring out how to get offensive linemen in a position that works well for them. And that's what you got to do as a coach. That's your job. And linemen seem to get forgotten. Chicago just doesn't seem to understand how to find creative ways to put their guys in a position to succeed. Now, the example I gave is just a small example of one play that it's not an NFL level. I'm not trying to do that, but man, so many coaches are doing good in the NFL. And then you look at coaches like what's happening with Shane Waldron in Chicago, clearly. And Doug Peterson's another example in Jacksonville.
Oh, man.
Not giving your players the right matchup and putting them in a position where their job is made easier for them because of the play you call and the way you scheme stuff up. Again, GH counter, put your tackle in a position where it was a block you just simply couldn't make. The angle never worked. It would have been asking a guy to do something impossible. We even talked about maybe having him just like fall over, get in the guy's way, because it's better to have the tackle trip over you and not make the play and just kind of wash him out. And I was like, that's not going to work. We got to just make a change. We got to do GT counter instead. Those questions don't seem to be being asked in Chicago and Jacksonville. And it's an issue, man. It's a really big problem.
It's a problem.
I got 2 more things before we go. It's been a long episode.
Yeah.
You got time for 2 more things?
Yeah, let's do them.
I watched USC lose to Michigan this past weekend, and it was about every week. College football gives you about 1 game a week, I've learned. Now, later in the year, as the year goes on, we're going to get more and more good games week to week. But right now, we're just not getting great games every week. This was the game of the week, and we were both watching, man. USC, early on in this football game, could not run the football at all. And they stuck with it. Actually, by the end of the game, they were getting some push up front. But ultimately, what really cost USC was just their lack of getting movement at the line of scrimmage and getting dominated, frankly, up front. It took them a little too long to get away from the run and start spreading the rock around, running 4 wide receiver sets and even empty sets. And then ultimately, Michigan found a way to win this football game. What did you make of that game on Saturday?
Michigan was just a bigger, more physical team. I still think that USC is not quite complete in terms of roster to be able to consistently compete with a team that's just that big up front. I mean, yeah, they weren't, other than like a 65-yard run, they weren't able to run the football at all. Miller Moss had to throw the ball 51 times. On the flip side, I think Michigan threw the ball like 10, 11, 12 times. Like that, like that to me is crazy. Like they just, and it wasn't like they blew them out and it was so dominant that they kept running the football. Like USC was like keeping in it. I think that's just what it came down to is Michigan was a bigger, more physical team. On that defensive side, Mason Graham and who's the other guy? They have another defensive lineman that also starts with a G. I think something Grant? Yeah, Kenneth Grant. Like those dudes are just monsters up front, and that's going to be hard for anybody to run the football. But yeah, I just saw a bigger physical Michigan team muster out a win. I don't think they're a better team per se than USC is, but they just happen to be a bigger, more physical team.
So the game really came down to a 3rd and 1. USC had the lead 24-20, and Michigan pulls off this like massive run, 63-yard run down to, from their 20-yard line, putting them in field goal range, leading to them winning the football game. It was pretty brutal. It was like, oh gosh, man, because that one play really cost USC the football game, and it's just a microcosm of, hey, Michigan was better up front. Here's my question, and where I want to go with this is that I think USC is one of the 12 best teams in college football. I'd like to see them in the college football playoff. I don't know if it works out that way, but I think this is a USC team that would be really interesting in the college football playoff. In fact, if it's even possible, I'd like to see them rematch against Michigan at some point this year. I think it'd be really fun. I don't know they're better than Ohio State, but they're I think one of the best 12 teams in college football. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that they're one of the best 12 teams in college football, and I think that they're going to have a chance to do that. They don't have to play Ohio State. Michigan's obviously already off the schedule. They don't have to play Ohio State. So really their hardest games coming up, they've got Penn State later in October, and then they close the year with Notre Dame, which I think that they're a better football team than Notre Dame. So those are going to be their toughest tests. Now, I'm not saying Wisconsin's not an easy game. Nebraska is a pretty solid team this year. Maryland can give you some fits. UW, who knows? But like the table is set for them to run the table for the rest of this year and see themselves in the college football playoff, as a 7 or 8, 7, 8, 9 seed, something like that, if they were to go undefeated.
I think unfortunately, if they don't make it in, it's because of this game. I think I hope not. There's a possibility.
A one-loss USC team is getting in the college football playoff.
You think?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, because how do the bids work with automatic? Yeah, well, because if you don't even make the Big Ten title game, though,
that's so possible.
Because if it's a 1-loss Penn State or a 1-loss USC, I guess Penn State won the head-to-head, or USC would have won the head-to-head. Like, so you got to beat Penn State. I just hope that this game doesn't come back to haunt USC. I hope they can overcome it and still get in, even though they lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
That's my only concern, because I think this USC team is a team as a fan of college football, I want to see them in the college football playoff. They make it more interesting. Yeah. They're really talented. They're really good. I love their quarterback. And I would hate to see them punished for this loss, which came down to one play.
Yeah. And again, like if that head-to-head comes up, Michigan has to play Oregon and Ohio State this year, which I think are 2 losses for them. They maybe have a better chance at beating Oregon than they do Ohio State, but they'll go down having 3 losses, I think. So then USC, only a 1-loss team, yes, to Michigan, but only 1 loss in conference.
But they gotta beat Penn State in LA, and it's not nothing.
It's not nothing. Penn State's got a very good defense, but their offense I don't think is spectacular. I think Drew Allar has grown a little bit, but nothing to me to write home about.
Yeah, Penn State plays Illinois this weekend. That's another game. I'm probably not going to watch it, but I'll keep track of it. And if it's close in the third quarter, probably tune in.
Yeah.
Illinois is not great, but if you struggle to score, that's an interesting game that Illinois could get you on. If Penn State loses to Illinois, we got problems at Penn State.
Yep.
Here's the thing I'm excited for this weekend. So we'll talk about the NFL games coming up. But the game of the weekend, NFL or college, to me, like by a mile. Number 2 Georgia at number 4 Alabama coming up.
Might as well be an NFL game.
I mean, dude, it's again between. It's very rare the best college game outshines the best NFL game to me, but this is like the best game of the weekend in any level of football. Can't wait for it. I don't want to ask you to make a prediction. I don't know what's going to happen. I just want to share joy and excitement because I think it's going to be really fun and really interesting. I think Jalen Milroe is a better quarterback than Carson Beck. It's a really competitive matchup, and Georgia was really flat against Kentucky week 3 in their 3rd game of the year, so I think they're vulnerable. I don't know, man. I think Alabama's got a shot to win this game pretty clearly, and they're not the favorite. They're clearly not the number 2 team in the country where Georgia is, but I really lean Alabama here. What say you?
Yeah, based off last week's performances, I'd lean Alabama. I think Milroe has, looked to be a better passer than he was last year.
And he's a better runner. He's just all around more dynamic than Carson Beck is.
And I haven't watched a ton of Alabama or Georgia this year. But yeah, I think based off last week, maybe you give the nod to Alabama, but it's going to be a very, very good football game.
How about the NFL? As you look down the list, I got a couple of games that stand out, but let's just go down the list and start with on Thursday Night Football, the Cowboys play at New York against the Giants. I have no idea. I do not know. Like, if you asked me going into the year, I'd say, the Cowboys are going to win easily and obviously, but I mean, the Giants beat the Browns. It felt like I don't know. It just feels like, and the Cowboys seem really vulnerable. The strength of the Giants is their front 7. The weakness of the Cowboys is their offensive line. Like, the matchup actually works in favor of the Giants. It feels like a toss-up, right?
If the Giants can run the football, the Cowboys D-line is very pass rusher oriented in terms of being light but fast. If they can run the football and control the clock, I think they'll be fine and win this football game. But if the Giants get down early, even 10 points, I can see it being very disastrous for the Giants.
Speaking of disastrous, how disastrous would it be if the Cowboys start 1-3, including a loss to the Giants?
It wouldn't be disastrous. It'd be Christmas, is what it would be. I'd be so excited to see the Cowboys drop to 1-3.
Oh man, are they? Man, how much do you got to put on Jerry Jones here? Like, how much is his decision making affecting this football team? Because it's
pretty heavily. I mean, the dude
right?
wants to be the GM and thinks that he knows who to pay, when to pay him, how to pay him. But this roster hasn't been good since they drafted Zeke.
We missed something real quick. We should go back to it if you want. We somehow went this entire episode without talking about the Cowboys-Ravens game. The Ravens beat the Cowboys 28-25, and it was not.
There's not much to talk about.
I mean, look, it was a 19-point comeback in garbage time for the Cowboys to make it interesting. The Ravens struggled to put them away. Is kind of how I would frame that.
I don't think they struggled to put them away. I just think that they started taking the nap. I mean, up until the 4th quarter, they were averaging 10 yards of play. And then I think that they really just shut it down. So I don't think it was about putting them away. I think it was just they literally took the keys out of the ignition, were halfway in the door, and they were like, oh, shoot, I forgot something in the car. You know what I mean?
Well, Lamar had a weird game. He was 12 for 15 passing, but the incompletion I remember so clearly is 3rd down, opportunity to ice the game, and he just misses a wide open receiver. And you're like, Lamar does that from time to time.
He does that.
We saw it earlier in the year. He just occasionally misses throws that are like inexcusable and easy.
But that's why you have King Henry in to run the rock and make sure that Lamar only has to pass that many times a game. I don't want to have Lamar throw 30 times a game or have to rush 10 plus times a game. I want to give the ball to Derrick Henry, let him tote the rock and control the clock, and then let Lamar be special when he needs to be special. I'm not going to knock him for that incompletion. He was probably already checked out of the game, which isn't what you want to say. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but I don't think there's much to report in this game other than the Cowboys suck. Their defense is small. Offense is CeeDee Lamb reliant. Without CeeDee Lamb, they ain't shit. That's all.
What I'll say is Dak looks expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it looks like, hey, you're paying a quarterback a lot of money that's not winning football games, and that's a problem.
Big problem.
I will say one more thing. What was fun about watching this game, again, I don't know how we went all episode without talking about it. I just missed it in my notes. To have a game where Derrick Henry has, 151 yards, 25 carries, 2 touchdowns. And then on top of that, Lamar Jackson, 14 carries, 87 yards, and another touchdown. It's exactly what we hoped we would get. When they signed Derrick Henry, I remember being like, dude, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson in the same backfield. And man, it delivered. Like that was a treat to watch. And it's exactly what you would hope it would be. Again, when they signed Derrick Henry, you're like, you mean we get to watch Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry play together? That's going to be fun, right? And it's exactly what you would hope it would be. It's a blast. It's like a video game.
It was awesome.
And I love watching the Cowboys lose, man. I was disappointed they made it interesting at the end. I'm not going to lie. I was at the end rooting for the Dallas Cowboys comeback because I just love a good comeback.
Nah, I wasn't.
But I would have preferred it be 34-6 and just they don't make a comeback at all and it's not interesting. Because I think it'd be easier to talk about the Cowboys in a negative light if the beatdown had really stayed the beatdown it was.
I would have preferred it stayed embarrassing. But they made it look not embarrassing.
I go back to this though. The money they're spending on quarterbacks on players is a problem, and it's kind of crippling their football team. The money they're paying Dak Prescott. For Dak to be the highest paid quarterback in football is crazy, right? It's just like, what are we doing here, man? Why are we doing this? Why are we causing this problem for ourselves? It's just clear to me Jerry Jones has a problem. He also had this weird moment where he was talking about some inappropriate stuff on a Jamie Foxx live stream, and it's just like,
what are we doing?
I'm so tired of Jerry Jones getting away with nonsense, and I hope soon the Cowboys fan base kind of turns on him and wakes up. They're already starting to, but it's like we really need, if you're going to have changes in Dallas, people got to call for him to give up the reins and give up control and hire a real general manager, because that's what really needs to happen in Dallas in order for them to be competitive, potentially win a Super Bowl.
100%.
Okay, back to what we were talking about. Here's not a game I'm not excited for at all, honestly. Browns at Raiders. Is there anything worth noting in this football game at all this Sunday?
I'd like to see the Browns defense not be absolutely costed by the Browns offense in terms of fumbles, and see how they rip up Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell.
It's a winnable game for the Raiders, right?
No.
Interesting. Okay. Saints Falcons is massive. It's a tough one. It's in Atlanta. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say 4 weeks ago, I thought the Falcons are running away with this game, but now I have no idea what to expect. I do think the Falcons are a better team, and maybe they were able to catch a little bit of what Philly was doing to slow down that Saints offense, but it'll be interesting.
Are they the better team? I mean, I know that the Saints got manhandled by Vic Fangio defense last week, but I don't know. I guess the Falcons defense has been great. You're leaning Atlanta winning this football game?
I'm leaning Atlanta winning the football game.
I think you're right, but I think it's going to be a really fun watch. It'll be one of the games on multi-view for sure for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rams, Bears.
Love this game. Really excited.
Really? Tell me more about it. Why?
Well, because you're going to see an elite quarterback in Matt Stafford and an elite coach in Sean McVay, and we're going to see what that looks like up against Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus. I think that we're going to see I don't want to say a coaching mismatch, but we're going to see a coaching mismatch, where we're going to see how do you want to say this? We might see how inept the Bears are this week, more so than any other week. Because, again, you still have a depleted Rams offense, a very, very young defense that's trying its hardest, but you've got an elite defense with the Bears, and you've got an offense that's trying to figure things out. And I think we're going to see a coaching gap, more so than any other game this week.
Interesting. It's a huge opportunity for the Rams they're 1-2. They survived, avoided 0-3. 2-2 is a huge victory. If they're 2-2 and kind of reviving their season with the Rams, that'd be massive.
And a huge game for the Bears, for that Bears staff to prove that they can be competent.
To win a game, you should win against a team that's pretty banged up.
You, on paper, are a better team.
Vikings at Green Bay is really fun. It's Sam Darnold, week 4, that experiment. They're 3-0, playing a pretty good Packers defense. It's Malik Willis, I think, probably playing. I think Jordan Love is still going to be out. I think the Vikings win this football game. I love Malik Willis. You're playing one of the best defenses in football, a Sam Darnold-led team in Minnesota that's red hot. I think it's closer than people are realizing. I think it's a fun, competitive AFC North battle that the Vikings win, but what say you?
I think we're going to need to see Josh Jacobs and the Green Bay Packers run the rock. And they kind of gave him a week off last week. They were able to split some carries between him and I think the running back Wilson over in Green Bay to kind of keep Josh Jacobs healthy. But if they want to win this game, I don't trust Malik Willis yet. And maybe he's developed and we don't know that. But I don't trust him with those disguised coverages that Brian Flores has to push that football downfield or really just throw it in general. So it's going to rely on Malik Willis's legs and Josh Jacobs to kind of give them the breathing room. But
Is
I
it
do
safe
give the
to
nod
assume?
the Vikings.
I mean, he's been there a month. That's not nothing. What are there limitations to the offense they're running in Green Bay? You would think, right? They're not. The playbook isn't as wide open as with Jordan Love, right?
Yeah, and I think just talent-wise overall, a few things are probably less available to you.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do if Malik Willis dominates the Vikings?
Then I trade Jordan Love. I'm just kidding. If he dominates,
That'd be weird, right? Like that's a nightmare for everyone, right?
if he dominates the Vikings, I just don't know what to do about the NFL this year. I will be so confused about every pick, every thought I've ever had in my life. I'm just gonna, I don't know.
I think the Steelers beat the Colts pretty handily, honestly. I love Anthony Richardson's potential and his future, but he's making a lot of mistakes. It's the best defense in football. It feels like a mismatch. What say you?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be handily beaten just because I don't think that the Steelers can really pull away from somebody just the way that they...
I disagree. They're going to run the football unlike Chicago's idiot self. I mean, they're going to run the football like Chicago should have done against Indy this week.
Yeah. I don't know if I love their run game, though. I don't know if I love Najee Harris. I loved him.
No DeForest Buckner.
I loved him 3 years ago, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what our boy R.D. Smith can dial up.
I just think the run game's the weakness. The run defense is the weakness of this Colts defense, honestly. I don't know. I think I like the Steelers a lot to win this football game comfortably, honestly.
I will say it can be tough to game plan for Anthony Richardson just because of, the plays that he can make completely off script and or just put his receiver in a position to make a play like we saw with Alec Pierce the first couple weeks. So it's going to be tougher to game plan for a guy like him. It's not as straightforward as game planning for a Justin Herbert, right? So it'll be interesting.
He could do everything wrong and still throw for 3 crazy touchdowns and put you in a deficit.
It is very possible.
Broncos Jets is massive. It's the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. I don't know. I mean, it'll be fun to watch Aaron Rodgers hug Zach Wilson pregame. Like I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. I really don't. Mike Williams against Riley Moss is the matchup. That's going to be interesting. I mean, Garrett Wilson and Pat Surtain is incredible, but I don't know that that's not just a lockdown performance for Pat Surtain, honestly.
Yeah, I just think that the Jets team in its totality is more complete than the Broncos right now, and I think that that's going to show. I don't think it's going to be any sort of blowout, but any win by less than 7, I'd be surprised. And I'm not saying that it's going to be this total ugly, domination, but I do think that the Jets handle this game.
What if Denver grinds out a 31-28 victory, something like that? 24-21. Say whatever you want.
I'd be pretty surprised, and you'd feel really, really good if you're Denver, and if you're the Jets, you'd have to figure out what went wrong, whether that was offensive production or the defense kind of giving some things up. You'd have to look at how those points were scored and given up.
I think Philly really takes it to Tampa this week. Remember, that's the game Philly lost in the playoffs last year. They lost to Tampa.
Embarrassingly.
I think Tampa's in a bad spot with a lot of injuries. I think Philly, I don't know if they're going to get A.J. Brown back or not for that football game, but I like Philly to beat Tampa in Tampa. What say you?
Yeah, I like that. Again, I didn't think that Tampa Bay was a good team. I think that Philly kind of torches them.
The Andy Dalton revenge game. Bengals at Carolina. That's awesome. I mean, no matter what you say, that's fun, right?
I have no idea. I just want to sit back and watch this game.
That'll be on the multi-view. It'll be fun. I think the Jaguars are in trouble. They look like they're going to start 0-4. They're playing Houston. Houston coming off of a pretty ugly loss to Minnesota. It's hard to not imagine Houston bouncing back. It's just a pride game where like you just got it slapped in the face, and now you're going to stand back up and give a punch back. I think Houston handles Jacksonville comfortably.
Yeah.
And you're seeing an awful 0-4 start for the Jaguars.
Yeah, I think that you've got two teams coming off of embarrassing losses. One being the Texans sees this as let's shake that off. Let's flex a little bit and let's get out there and try it again. Meanwhile, the Jaguars are going to be like, fuck, bro. We got to go play the Texans. We're going to get our that's the kind of it's like a difference in energy
sluggish.
from how you get embarrassed. Like one team is embarrassed and excited to come back and try and, have some pride. And then the other team's like, we just got embarrassed. We're a bad team. Why even go out there and play?
There's like a hangover vibe to the Jaguars.
Yeah, just the way that they lost the first game, the way they got embarrassed the second and the third game just does not spell. It doesn't lead me to believe that there's any confidence in that locker room that they can win football games.
Houston has hope too.
Yeah, Houston's
got hope. We have something to prove.
They're a good team.
Another revenge game. It's a week of revenge games. Cliff Kingsbury back in the desert against Arizona. This game's awesome, dude.
I hope it's high scoring.
Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray. I hope. It would be so disappointing if it was like a defensive battle. I want a college level scoring, type of game.
Yeah, I want to see this score.
Quarterbacks running everywhere, making all kinds of throws, young receivers. I just want to see a lot of fun with this one.
Like Gannon said, going to throw some shots. Pew, 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 pew.
Patriots at 49ers. The 49ers got to win, right?
They better. They better whoop that ass.
If they don't, it's a concern.
Yes.
I mean, to be 1-3 with the injuries they have, you can't even take care of the Patriots. It's a must-win game for the 49ers and Brock Purdy. I think they do, though.
They better, and we'll just leave it at that.
We talked about it earlier. The Chargers are missing both tackles. They're banged up all over the place. Herbert's injured. I don't see a world where the Chargers can beat Kansas City this week. What say you?
Yeah, I don't either. If there was a game type to win it, I think you would need to keep the game close, and you would need a quarterback who can make that extra
Taylor Heineke,
play.
He's the backup.
Yeah, I don't think Taylor Heineke can make that extra play like a Justin Herbert could.
Well, especially without both tackles against the best defense in football.
You're going to be a sitting duck. Chris Jones is going to have his way.
Sunday night football is Buffalo at Baltimore. Oh, dude, that's a treat. Like that's a really fun one, right?
Yes, and I would so badly love to see the Ravens just blow them out for no other reason than to make my prediction right and to validate all these things that I'm saying about Buffalo being a merchant of bad teams and having a little bit of a hot start.
So let's consider the opposite. If Buffalo wins, they'd be 4-0 with a win over the Ravens, who would be 1-3. Mm-hmm. Would you then twist it and say, well, then the Ravens aren't a good team?
Yes, that's exactly what I would do. Exactly.
What is it going to take for Buffalo to get credit?
They need to beat Kansas City in a game that matters.
I mean, that's a really specific goalpost.
That's not even moving a goalpost. That's just like setting a little target.
Like, hey, this one, I'm only going to say good things if they do this one very specific thing.
They could go 16-1, but if that one losses to Kansas City, dog shit team.
Oh my gosh, you're crazy. Ready for the worst quarterback matchup of all time? Tennessee at Miami, Monday Night Football. There's two games that night. I know which one I'm watching.
I hope it's Tyler Huntley. It sounds like he's going to be the starter. He's at least going to be able to give you a chance. He's a pro.
And can run around too. By the way,
he's a Pro Bowl quarterback. He is.
Technically.
He is.
Technically.
And I need him to get the ball to Tyreek Hill. Otherwise, my fantasy teams are going to continue to suffer.
The thing I like about Tyler Huntley, again, he can move around too.
Yeah.
I think actually, like you're looking for an opportunity to believe in Mike McDaniel as a coach. This is the moment to prove it. You put Tyler Huntley in, you run a little bit varied of an offense. I think you get him out of the perimeter. You take advantage of its ability to run. I would really like to see a specifically designed game plan to fit his skill set. Would you maybe change your tune on Mike McDaniel if he wins handily and they look like an offense tailor-made for Tyler Huntley?
Yeah. I would be.
You just want your fantasy team to do well.
I would say I would just be more impressed to see what the game plan looks like with Tyler Huntley. Because if it looks anything like what they tried to put together for Skylar Thompson, which didn't look like anything at all, we're gonna see something similar where Tyler Huntley's running around, doesn't know where to go with the football. But the bottom line is against the Dolphins, take away the middle of the field. Don't let them have the slants and the crossers to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in space. Because those are the plays that kill you. You can let A-Chain kind of chunk you up a little bit. Obviously, don't let him break one. But if you can stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle from turning 8-yard catches into 70-yard touchdowns, then you can win the game. But yes, I would be impressed.
Seattle's 3-0.
Hey.
It's a weird 3-0, right? It's beating a rookie quarterback week 1, the Patriots week 2 in overtime, and then beating Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Detroit is 2-1. They're hosting this game. Monday Night Football, Seattle at Detroit. I like Detroit here a lot. I think they win comfortably. If they don't, I'm concerned. What say you?
Detroit should blow this team out of the water. Now, it's Monday Night Football. Anything can happen when you're on the big stage. But they are a better team top to bottom. I will say that Detroit will have to run the football. Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, I think it's Devin Witherspoon, are serious, serious corners. You know, Jamison Williams is going to have a tough time getting open over the top. I'm not sure how they're going to plan to guard Amon-Ra St. Brown. But if Detroit wants to win this game, they have to run the football. Because if you try and throw it and you try and have this glitzy glam game of Jared Goff having 300 plus yards, you're not going to have success. You got to keep this one on the ground and you'll beat them. Seattle will beat themselves. They tried to do everything that they could to keep the Dolphins in the game last week, but the Dolphins just had no offense to do anything. So if we see anything similar with this kind of Ryan Grubb, I'm not even sure what it really looks like yet offense, yikes. Could be trouble in Seattle.
Of the games we talked about, 7 really stand out. I see a really special weekend coming up in the NFL and college. Georgia, number 2 team in the country, at number 4, Alabama. Special, fun. Probably game of the weekend in college or pros. Saints at Falcons is a blast. Got no idea what's going to happen there. Vikings, Packers, Sam Darnold. Can he go 4-0? Can he beat a good Packers defense? Broncos, Jets, the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. Sean Payton against Aaron Rodgers. Rookie quarterback against a good defense. That's a home run. Can't wait for that. The Andy Dalton revenge game. We get to watch Andy Dalton hosting Cincinnati and Joe Burrow with the Carolina Panthers. That's a lot of fun. The Red Rifle against his former team and the quarterback that replaced him. Washington on the road in Arizona. Cliff Kingsbury revenge game. Going back to the desert to play his former team. And again, a quarterback matchup. Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels. That's an incredible matchup. Can't wait for that one. And then Sunday Night Football. Josh Allen on the road. 3-0. At a 1-2 Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. That's a great quarterback matchup. This weekend in the NFL and college, we got 7 games that are just like head and shoulders above all of them. Bunch of matchups, games I don't know how exactly they're going to be, you know, what the outcomes are going to look like. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this weekend.
Tell you what, NFL knows what they're doing. God, they put together some good storylines, don't they?
They always do, man. It's so much fun. Dude, that's all I got. You made it through 3.5 hours talking football with me. God bless you on a school night. I'm tired and I got to go now edit this. I imagine you're exhausted too, right?
I'm going to probably send a few emails here to get myself prepped for tomorrow, make a PB&J, and then we'll get in bed. Okay,
to that you're going to work, respect, love the prep. You're going to eat at midnight? That seems like a bad idea. You're trying to pack on the couch.
I had a very light dinner, and a light lunch, and I'm hungry.
This might be the toxic. What do they call it? Heroin chic part of me. But the way you stay skinny is you don't eat at night, man. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go pound some food too. Let's be very clear, but I feel bad about it. I feel guilty.
Health tip, eating right before bed is the worst possible thing you can do. Your body instantly stores things as fat. Don't try and call me this health nutrition guy, and I don't want to see you guys in the comments. If you've listened this far, sitting here, tell me, oh, yeah. Listen, if you want to put weight on, you eat at night. It's what you do. Your body stores it as fat. It doesn't have any. Anyways, I'm not even going to talk about this. I'm getting out of here.
Well, I don't know about you. Adding weight is definitely not what I'm trying to do at this point of my life.
Nah, man, I'm trying to slim down.
All right, brother. I love you, man. Great job
Love you
tonight.
too, big dog. We'll see ya.